Welcome to the Sleepy Stoic. Tonight, we explore one of the most remarkable stories in the history of philosophy. The life and teachings of Epictetus, a man who was born into slavery, suffered physical disability, owned nothing, controlled almost nothing about his external circumstances, and yet became one of history's greatest teachers on the subject of freedom. His story is not just inspiring, it's instructive. It shows us something profound about the nature of freedom itself and where true power actually resides. Epictetus lived in the 1st and 2nd century CE during the height of the Roman Empire. He was born around 50 CE in Hierapolis in what is now Turkey, and he was born a slave. We don't know his birth name. Epictetus itself is Greek for acquired or gained, likely a name given to him as property. From the very beginning of his life, he had no control over his circumstances, no choice about his status, no freedom in any conventional sense. At some point in his youth, he was brought to Rome and became the property of Epictetus, a wealthy freedman who served as secretary to the Emperor Nero. It was in Rome, in the household of a powerful man, that Epictetus was exposed to philosophy. Somehow, despite his status as a slave, he was allowed or perhaps encouraged to attend the lectures of Musonius Rufus, one of the leading Stoic philosophers of the time. This education would transform not just Epictetus's life, but the entire subsequent history of Stoic philosophy. There's a story, possibly apocryphal but repeated by ancient sources, about how Epictetus came to have a permanent limp. According to this account, his master was twisting his leg, either as punishment or cruel amusement. Epictetus calmly warned him, "You're going to break my leg." His master continued, and the leg broke. Epictetus simply said, "I told you that you would break it." The story illustrates something central to his philosophy. His body could be harmed, his circumstances could be terrible, but his essential self, his capacity for reason and choice, remained free. Whether this specific story is true or not, we know that Epictetus did walk with a limp for his entire life. Some sources suggest it was from the mistreatment just described. Others say it was from disease in childhood. What matters is not the cause but his response. He lived with physical disability and the limitations of slavery, and from these circumstances, he developed a philosophy of radical internal freedom that has influenced thinkers for 2,000 years. Eventually, Epictetus was freed. We don't know exactly when or why. Perhaps Epictetus died and freed his slaves. Perhaps Epictetus was granted freedom for some service. But freedom, when it came, didn't fundamentally change Epictetus's philosophy or his sense of self. He had already discovered that true freedom doesn't depend on external status. The liberation that mattered had already occurred internally, long before any legal document declared him a free man. After gaining his freedom, Epictetus began teaching philosophy in Rome. He attracted students and developed a reputation as a profound and practical teacher. But in 93 CE, the Emperor Domitian, suspicious of philosophy and philosophers, expelled all philosophers from Rome and Italy. Epictetus, along with others, was forced into exile. He settled in Nicopolis in northwestern Greece, where he established a philosophical school that would flourish for the rest of his life. In Nicopolis, Epictetus taught until his death around 135 CE. He lived simply, owned almost nothing, remained unmarried for most of his life, though he may have adopted a child late in life to save it from exposure. He lived according to the principles he taught, that externals don't determine your well-being, that freedom is internal, that what matters is not what happens to you but how you respond to what happens. His life was a demonstration of his philosophy, and that consistency gave his teaching extraordinary power. Epictetus himself wrote nothing. Like Socrates before him, he taught through conversation and dialogue. Everything we know of his philosophy comes from his student Arion, who attended his lectures and recorded them. Arion compiled 2 works: the Discourses, which are longer records of Epictetus's teachings, and the Enchiridion or Handbook, which is a shorter manual of key principles designed to be carried and consulted regularly. These texts have survived and influenced countless people across the centuries, including the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who studied Epictetus's works intensively. What makes Epictetus's teaching particularly powerful is its origin in lived experience. He wasn't a wealthy aristocrat philosophizing about hardship from a position of comfort. He had experienced genuine powerlessness. He knew what it meant to have your body subject to another's will. He understood limitation, suffering, and the absolute lack of control over external circumstances. And from that experience, he discovered something that no external force could take from him: his inner freedom, his capacity to choose his responses, his ability to maintain his character regardless of circumstances. This is the central insight we'll explore tonight: that freedom is not primarily about external circumstances, but about internal stance. That you can be a slave and be free, or an emperor and be enslaved. That what determines your actual liberty is not your legal status or your material conditions, but your understanding of what's truly up to you and what isn't. This teaching is as relevant now as it was 2,000 years ago, perhaps more so in a world where we often feel controlled by circumstances, by others' opinions, by systems we can't influence. Let's begin with Epictetus's most fundamental teaching, the one that opens the Enchiridion and underlies everything else he taught. He divides all of existence into 2 categories: things that are up to us and things that are not up to us. This distinction, which Stoics call the dichotomy of control, is the foundation of all freedom and peace. Understanding it clearly and living according to it is the difference between slavery and freedom, regardless of your external circumstances. What is up to us? Epictetus is very specific. Our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions. In short, our own mental actions and choices. These are within our power. We can choose what judgments to accept, what values to hold, what to pursue, what to avoid, how to respond to impressions. No external force can make these choices for us. Even torture can hurt the body but cannot force the mind to believe something or choose something. This domain, limited as it may seem, is your realm of absolute power. What is not up to us? Everything else. Your body, your property, your reputation, your relationships, your health, your lifespan, what others think or do, outcomes of your actions, the weather, the economy, political situations. Literally everything external to your capacity for choice. You can influence some of these things, certainly. You can care for your body, work for wealth, try to build good reputation, nurture relationships. But ultimately, you don't control them. They can be taken or changed by forces outside your power. This might seem like a harsh or limiting framework at first. So much is outside our control. But Epictetus would say this is liberation, not limitation. Once you clearly see what's not up to you, you can stop wasting energy trying to control it. You can stop suffering over things you were never able to control anyway. And you can focus all your energy on the one domain where you have genuine power: your own mind, your own choices, your own character. Think about how much suffering comes from trying to control what you cannot control. You're anxious about what someone thinks of you, but their thoughts are not up to you. You're worried about whether you'll get sick, but your health is not entirely up to you. You're stressed about whether your business will succeed, but economic conditions and countless other factors beyond your control influence that outcome. You're upset about political situations, but you're one person among millions and your individual power to change things is minimal. Epictetus would ask, why are you disturbing yourself over what's not up to you? This isn't callousness, it's clarity. He's not saying these things don't matter at all. He's saying they're not within your control, and therefore not appropriate objects of anxiety or upset. You can prefer health to sickness, wealth to poverty, success to failure. These are natural preferences. But your peace of mind should not depend on getting what you prefer, because you don't ultimately control whether you get it. What you do control is how you respond to whatever happens. Someone insults you? Not up to you. How you interpret the insult and whether you let it disturb your peace. Up to you. You get sick? Not up to you. How you face the illness and what meaning you make of it. Up to you. The economy crashes and you lose money? Not up to you. Whether you maintain your character and find a way forward. Up to you. This is the domain of freedom, and it's available to everyone, slave or free, rich or poor, healthy or sick. Epictetus lived this teaching. As a slave, almost nothing about his external life was up to him. His time wasn't his own. His body wasn't fully his own. His location, his activities, his circumstances were all determined by others. And yet he maintained his freedom by focusing on what was up to him. His judgments, his responses, his character, his development of wisdom and virtue. No master could take these from him. No circumstance could destroy his essential liberty. This is why he could say, with complete conviction, that he was freer than his master. His master was enslaved by desires for things outside his control, by fear of losing what he had, by dependence on external circumstances for his sense of well-being. Epictetus, owning nothing and controlling nothing external, was free because his well-being didn't depend on externals. He had located his freedom where it actually resides, in the realm of choice and judgment. For us, lying here tonight, perhaps troubled by various concerns, Epictetus's teaching offers immediate practical value. Whatever you're worried about, ask, is this up to me? If it's genuinely not up to you, then recognize that worry serves no purpose. You're disturbing yourself over what you cannot control. This doesn't mean you do nothing. If you can influence the situation appropriately, do so. But having done what you can, release the outcome. It's not up to you. If what you're worried about is up to you, then you can address it. Not through worry, but through choice and action. Are you worried about your character? That's up to you. You can choose to develop it. Are you worried about your judgments being wise? That's up to you. You can practice examining them. Are you worried about your response to difficulty? That's up to you. You can train yourself to respond with virtue rather than panic. The domain of what's up to you is smaller than we usually think, but it's also more powerful than we realize. Epictetus had a student who was worried about his brother's opinion of him. The student kept trying to figure out how to make his brother think well of him, how to win his approval. Epictetus stopped him and said, "Is your brother's opinion up to you?" The student had to admit it wasn't. Then why are you concerned with what's not your business? Your business is to be good, to act with virtue. Whether your brother recognizes this is his business, not yours. Focus on what's yours. This is a hard teaching for many of us. We desperately want certain outcomes. We want people to approve of us. We want our efforts to succeed. We want to be healthy and secure. These desires are natural, but Epictetus would say, by all means, prefer these things. Work toward them when appropriate, but don't make your peace depend on getting them because they're not ultimately up to you. Make your peace depend on what is up to you your character, your choices, your responses. Another student came to Epictetus worried about dying. Death seemed terrible to him, the worst thing that could happen. Epictetus asked him, "Is death up to you? Can you prevent it?" The student admitted he couldn't. "Then you're making yourself miserable over what's not in your power. Death will come when it comes. What's up to you is how you live until then. Whether you live with courage and wisdom, whether you waste your life in fear of its end or use it well while you have it." This might seem cold, but it's actually liberating. If you truly absorb it, if you genuinely recognize what's up to you and what isn't, you experience tremendous freedom. You stop wasting energy on what you can't control. You stop torturing yourself with anxiety over outcomes you can't determine. You focus your limited time and energy on what actually matters and what you can actually influence. Your own mind, your own choices, your own character. Epictetus would walk through the marketplace and see people upset about all kinds of things. Someone lost money in a business deal and was distraught. Someone else was insulted and furious. Another person was worried about their health, and he would observe that all their suffering came from the same source. They were treating things not up to them as if those things were up to them. They were trying to control what cannot be controlled, and the inevitable failure to control it made them miserable. The solution, Epictetus taught, is to reverse this. Take all the energy you're spending trying to control externals and redirect it to what you can control, your judgments and responses. When something external happens, good or bad, your first response should be to examine your judgment about it. Are you calling it good or bad based on clear thinking, or based on habit and social conditioning? Are you responding with wisdom or with automatic reaction? This is where your power lies. Let's make this very concrete with common modern situations. You're anxious about a job interview tomorrow. Ask, is the outcome of the interview up to me? Not entirely. You can prepare, present yourself well, answer thoughtfully. These are up to you. But whether you get the job depends on many factors outside your control. Other candidates, the interviewer's preferences, company needs, budget, timing. So do what's up to you, prepare well and present honestly, and then release the outcome. It's not yours to control. You're upset because someone spoke badly of you. Ask, is their opinion up to me? No, their thoughts are their business. You can try to correct misunderstandings. You can live in a way that makes their criticism obviously false, but you cannot control what they think. What's up to you? How you respond internally. Do you let their words disturb your peace? Do you make your sense of worth dependent on their opinion? These are choices and they're yours to make. You're worried about your health, about a symptom or a test result. Ask, is my health entirely up to me? No. You can live healthily, but you can't guarantee health. Bodies are vulnerable to countless factors outside your control. What is up to you? How you relate to your health. Do you care for your body wisely? When illness comes, do you respond with courage and clarity, or with panic and despair? Do you appreciate the health you have, or take it for granted until it's threatened? In each case, the practice is the same. Distinguish clearly between what's up to you and what isn't. Focus your energy on what's up to you. Accept what isn't up to you, responding wisely but without attachment to outcomes you can't control. This is how Epictetus found freedom in slavery. This is how anyone can find freedom in any circumstance. But Epictetus went further. He didn't just teach about distinguishing what's up to us from what isn't. He taught about training, about practice, about actually developing the capacity to maintain this distinction in real life under pressure. He knew that understanding a principle intellectually is different from being able to apply it when you're suffering or afraid or angry. So he developed practical exercises, ways of training the mind to respond with wisdom rather than automatic reaction. One practice is to preface every preference or aversion with a mental note. When you desire something, say to yourself, "I desire this, and I recognize it's not entirely up to me whether I get it." When you're averse to something, say, "I want to avoid this, and I recognize I may not be able to." This simple practice weakens the attachment that creates suffering. You still have preferences, but you hold them lightly, knowing you don't control whether you get what you prefer. Another practice is morning and evening reflection. In the morning, prepare yourself for the day. Remind yourself that you'll encounter things not up to you. Other people's behavior, events beyond your control, situations you didn't choose. Remind yourself that what's up to you is your response to these things. Set an intention to respond with wisdom and virtue. In the evening, review how you did. When did you maintain proper focus on what's up to you? When did you get disturbed by what's not up to you? Learn from both and practice again tomorrow. Epictetus also taught the importance of testing principles in small things before you need them in large things. Practice distinguishing what's up to you and what isn't in low-stakes situations. Someone cuts you off in traffic? Not up to you. Your response? Up to you. Practice letting it go. Your coffee is made wrong? Not up to you. How you respond? Up to you. Practice equanimity. These small practices build the capacity you'll need when facing larger challenges. He compared this to an athlete training. An athlete doesn't just think about how to compete. They practice repeatedly, building muscle and skill gradually. Similarly, a philosopher doesn't just think about wisdom. They practice it daily, building mental strength and skill gradually. When the test comes, when real difficulty arrives, you respond from practice, not from theory. Your training determines whether you maintain your freedom or lose it to circumstances. Epictetus himself had been tested severely. Slavery was the test that shaped his entire philosophy. Physical disability was a test he carried lifelong. Exile from Rome was another test. Throughout all of it, he maintained his inner freedom by consistently applying the principles he taught. He didn't claim it was easy. He didn't say you could just decide once to be free and never struggle again. He said you practice repeatedly, daily, until the practice becomes your natural response. There's profound encouragement in this for anyone facing difficulty. Epictetus's life proves that circumstances don't determine your freedom. You can be in the worst imaginable external situation and maintain inner liberty. Conversely, you can have every external advantage and be internally enslaved by desires, fears, and dependencies. Freedom is not about what you have or what happens to you. It's about understanding what's truly yours, what's actually in your power, and living from that understanding. For us tonight, lying here with whatever concerns we carry, Epictetus offers a path to peace. The concerns are probably about things not entirely up to us. That's why they're concerns. If they were completely in our power, we just handle them. The worry comes from wanting to control what we can't control, from treating outcomes as if they're up to us when they're not. The solution is to clearly see what's up to us, do that faithfully, and release everything else. What's up to you right now? Your attention, your judgments, your response to thoughts. Not up to you? The thoughts themselves arising, the past that already happened, the future that hasn't arrived, whether you fall asleep quickly or not. Can you see the freedom in this? You're not responsible for controlling what you can't control. You're only responsible for your own mind and choices. And that's enough. That's where your power actually lives. Epictetus would say, stop trying to make the universe conform to your will. It won't. Billions of factors beyond your control determine how things unfold. Your job is not to control the universe, but to control yourself, to maintain your character, to respond with wisdom. This is possible in any circumstance. A slave can do it. You can do it. The circumstances that seem to limit you actually don't touch your essential freedom, unless you give them that power by making your peace depend on them. As we move forward into deeper exploration of Epictetus's teachings, keep this foundation in mind. Everything builds on the dichotomy of control, on clearly distinguishing what's up to you from what isn't. This isn't just interesting philosophy. It's a practical tool for daily life. It's how a man in chains found freedom. It's how you can find freedom regardless of what chains, literal or metaphorical, you're currently experiencing. The story of Epictetus is ultimately about the indestructible nature of human dignity and freedom when properly understood. External circumstances can constrain the body, control resources, determine status, inflict pain. But they cannot touch the essential self, the capacity for choice and judgment, unless you surrender that capacity through ignorance or habit. Epictetus never surrendered it. He lived free in slavery because he understood where freedom actually resides. This understanding transformed everyone who studied with him. His students included people from all walks of life: wealthy Romans, political figures, ordinary citizens, even eventually the thoughts of an emperor through Marcus Aurelius reading his works. Each found in Epictetus's teaching a way to be free regardless of their circumstances. Not free from circumstances, which is often impossible, but free within any circumstances, which is always possible. Tonight, as we continue exploring his life and wisdom, you have the opportunity to discover this freedom yourself. Not by changing your circumstances, though you'll address what needs addressing, but by understanding clearly what's actually yours, what's actually in your power, and living from that understanding. This is the freedom Epictetus discovered. This is the freedom he taught. This is the freedom available to you right now, regardless of anything else. The man in chains was freer than his master. The slave became one of history's greatest teachers of liberty. The disabled philosopher walked farther in wisdom than most people with healthy legs walk in their entire lives. All because he understood something simple but profound. Freedom is internal, power is in choice, and no external circumstance can touch your essential dignity unless you let it. This is the teaching. This is the path. This is what we'll explore together in the hours ahead. Before we move deeper into Epictetus's specific teachings, let's consider why his philosophy matters so particularly now, 2,000 years after he lived. We live in very different circumstances than ancient Rome. Most of us are not slaves in any legal sense. We have freedoms and choices Epictetus could barely imagine. And yet, many people today feel profoundly unfree. They feel controlled by circumstances, by obligations, by others' expectations, by systems they can't influence. Why? Epictetus would say we've forgotten where freedom actually lives. We think freedom means having our circumstances arranged the way we want them. We think if we had enough money, the right relationship, the perfect job, the ideal health, then we'd be free and happy. But this is a trap. It makes our well-being dependent on countless factors outside our control. It sets us up for constant anxiety because circumstances are always changing and often not in our favor. Modern life amplifies this trap. We're constantly exposed to others' curated lives on social media, making us feel our circumstances should be different. We're bombarded with advertising telling us we need things we don't have. We're given the illusion of control through technology and choice, while actually having very little power over the large systems that shape our lives. We feel we should be able to control everything, and when we can't, we feel like failures. Epictetus's teaching cuts through all this. He'd say, you're looking for freedom in the wrong place. External circumstances will never give you lasting freedom because they're always subject to change and never entirely in your control. Real freedom, the kind that can't be taken from you, lives in understanding what's actually yours and living from that understanding. It's as available to you as it was to him, but you have to shift where you're looking for it. Consider how much time and energy you spend trying to control things not up to you, trying to make people think well of you, trying to guarantee certain outcomes, trying to prevent all possible losses, trying to arrange circumstances perfectly. This is exhausting and ultimately futile. You'll never succeed completely, and even temporary success doesn't bring lasting peace because you know it can all change. You're building your sense of freedom on sand. What would it mean to build on rock instead? To locate your freedom where Epictetus located his, in the domain that's actually yours? You'd stop wasting energy trying to control others' thoughts. You'd do your best work and release attachment to outcomes. You'd accept that loss is possible and sometimes happens, while maintaining your character through it. You'd recognize that perfect circumstances are impossible, and that's okay because your well-being doesn't depend on them. This doesn't mean becoming passive or not caring about anything. Epictetus wasn't passive. He taught actively, lived engaged with students and community, had preferences and worked toward goals. But he didn't make his peace dependent on getting what he wanted. He maintained equanimity whether things went his way or not, because his essential freedom didn't rest on circumstances. This is engagement without attachment, effort without desperation, care without dependence. For those of us lying here tonight, perhaps kept awake by worries, Epictetus's teaching offers immediate relief. Most of what you're worrying about is not up to you. You're tormenting yourself trying to control what you can't control. What if you just stopped? What if you clearly saw what's not yours to control and released it? Not by denying it matters, but by recognizing you don't have power over it, so worry serves no purpose. What remains when you release what's not yours? Your own mind, your own choices, your own character. This is smaller in scope than trying to control everything, but it's actually achievable. You can work on your character. You can examine your judgments. You can choose your responses. You can develop wisdom and virtue. These are genuinely in your power, and working on them actually improves your life in lasting ways. Epictetus' students often resisted this teaching at first. They wanted to believe they could control more than they actually could. They wanted their freedom to include controlling outcomes, others' opinions, future events. Epictetus had to persistently bring them back to reality. These things are not up to you. You can influence some of them, but you don't control them. Basing your peace on them is building on sand. Accept what's not yours and focus on what is. This acceptance is not defeat. It's clarity. It's seeing reality as it actually is rather than as you wish it were. And from that clear seeing, you can engage with life more effectively. You're not wasting energy fighting reality. You're not disturbed by things you were never able to control anyway. You're focused on the one domain where you have genuine power, and in that domain, you can make real progress. The freedom Epictetus discovered is available right now. It doesn't require changing your circumstances, though you'll address what needs addressing. It doesn't require years of training, though practice deepens it. It requires one thing: clearly understanding what's up to you and what isn't, and living from that understanding. In this moment, that's available. Your circumstances are what they are. What's up to you is how you relate to them, what meaning you make of them, how you respond. That's your freedom. That's your power. That's enough. Let's go deeper into Epictetus's understanding of freedom and explore how he taught his students to actually apply these principles in daily life. The dichotomy of control is the foundation, but Epictetus built an entire practical philosophy on that foundation, a comprehensive way of living that maintains freedom regardless of circumstances. One of Epictetus's most important teachings concerns the nature of impressions and how we respond to them. An impression is anything that appears in consciousness. A thought, a perception, a feeling, a sensation, an image. Impressions arise constantly, automatically, without our permission. You cannot prevent impressions from appearing. This is crucial to understand. You're not responsible for what impressions arise. You're responsible for what you do with them once they appear. Epictetus taught that between an impression arising and your response to it, there's a space. In that space lives your freedom. The impression itself is not up to you, it just appears. But whether you assent to it, whether you believe it, whether you act on it, these are up to you. This is where choice lives. This is where you exercise your rational capacity. This is the domain of freedom. He would tell his students, when an impression arises, pause. Don't immediately accept it as true or act on it. Instead, examine it. Ask, what is this impression telling me? Is it accurate? Is it useful? Does acting on it align with my values and with wisdom? This examination, this pause, this is you exercising your freedom. You're not controlled by automatic reactions. You're choosing your response based on reason. Let's make this concrete. An impression arises. That person insulted me, and I'm humiliated. Pause. Examine. What actually happened? The person said certain words. That's a fact. But insult and humiliated are your interpretations, your judgments. Are they accurate? Perhaps the person didn't intend insult. Perhaps they did, but that says more about them than about you. Even if they intended harm, does their intention actually harm your essential self? Can words from another person actually diminish your worth? By examining the impression rather than automatically accepting it, you create freedom. You might conclude, that person spoke harshly. Their words reflect their current state, not my actual worth. I don't need to accept their judgment of me. I'm free to respond with dignity rather than reactivity. This examination takes only moments, but it transforms your experience. You're no longer at the mercy of every impression that arises. You're exercising choice. Another impression, I must succeed at this task or I'm worthless. Pause. Examine. Is success at this task truly up to you? Partly, perhaps. You can make good effort, but the outcome depends on many factors outside your control. Is your worth actually determined by this outcome? Only if you accept that judgment. But is it true? Your essential worth comes from your capacity for reason and virtue, not from any particular achievement. You can value success without making your worth dependent on it. Through this examination, you free yourself from the tyranny of impressions. They still arise, they're still part of your experience, but they don't control you. You control whether you accept them, what meaning you make of them, how you respond to them. This is the freedom Epictetus practiced and taught. It's available in any circumstance because it depends only on your capacity for examination and choice, which no external force can take from you. Epictetus often used the metaphor of an actor in a play. You've been assigned a role in life's drama. Maybe it's a lead role, maybe a minor one. Maybe the role involves wealth and power, maybe poverty and limitation. The role itself is not up to you. That's determined by factors outside your control. where you were born, to whom, with what natural capacities, in what historical moment, in what circumstances. But how you play your assigned role, that's up to you. A good actor doesn't complain about their role. They don't refuse to play unless they get the lead. They take whatever role they're given and play it well, with skill and integrity. Similarly, a wise person doesn't complain about their circumstances or demand that life give them ideal conditions. They take the circumstances they have and respond with wisdom and virtue. This is what's actually in their power and what actually determines their character. Epictetus was assigned the role of slave. He didn't choose it, couldn't avoid it, had no control over it. But he chose how to play that role. He could have become bitter, resentful, broken. Many slaves did. Who could blame them? But Epictetus chose differently. He chose to maintain his dignity, to learn what he could, to develop his mind, to practice virtue within the constraints of his role. He played the role of slave with such skill and integrity that he transcended it entirely and became a teacher of freedom. This teaching has immediate application. You've been assigned certain circumstances, a particular body, a family situation, a historical moment, various limitations and opportunities. These are your role. Complaining about them or demanding different ones is pointless. They're not up to you, at least not in their essentials. What's up to you is how you engage with them. Do you play your assigned role with wisdom and virtue? Do you make the best of what you have? Do you maintain your character regardless of the role? A student came to Epictetus worried that he had been assigned a difficult family situation. His father was harsh and his brother was hostile. He wanted Epictetus to tell him how to change them. Epictetus said, "You want to make other people's characters your business? That's not your role. Your role is to be a good son and a good brother, regardless of how others act. Their behavior is their role. They'll answer for how they play it. You answer for yours. Focus on playing your role well." This is hard teaching because we desperately want to control more than we actually control. We want our efforts to guarantee success. We want our kindness to guarantee kind responses. We want our care for others to guarantee they'll change and improve. But these outcomes are not up to us. All we control is our own performance of our role. And that has to be enough because it's what's actually in our power. Epictetus also taught about the proper use of impressions. Not all impressions should be acted on. Some should be examined and rejected. Some should be modified before acceptance. And some should be accepted but held lightly. The skill is in discerning which response is appropriate for which impression. This is what he meant by training in philosophy, developing the capacity to handle impressions wisely. An impression arises. I want that expensive thing. Examine it. Do you really need it? Will having it genuinely improve your life? Or is this desire created by advertising or social comparison? If you don't get it, will you still be okay? The impression itself, the desire, arose automatically. But what you do with it is up to you. You can recognize it as just an impression, a passing mental event, not a command you must obey. Another impression, I'm afraid of that upcoming challenge. Examine it. What specifically are you afraid of? Is the fear proportional to the actual danger? Are you catastrophizing? What's the worst that could realistically happen? And could you handle it? Often, examination reveals that fear is based on imagination rather than reality. The impression of fear arose, but you don't have to believe the story fear is telling. You can acknowledge the feeling while choosing courage in action. Epictetus taught that most of our suffering comes from adding judgments to neutral events. Something happens, that's a neutral fact. But immediately, automatically, we add judgments. This is terrible, this shouldn't have happened, this is unfair, this means something bad about me. These judgments create the suffering, not the event itself. If you can see the event as simply an event, without the added judgments, much of the suffering disappears. His classic example: someone breaks your favorite cup. The event: the cup broke. Neutral fact: the suffering comes from judgments. My beautiful cup is ruined. This is terrible. I'll never find another like it. Why did this have to happen? But the cup is just an object, and all objects eventually break or are lost. If you can see this clearly, the event doesn't disturb you much. You might prefer the cup hadn't broken, but you're not devastated because you're not adding layers of unnecessary judgment. This applies to much larger events too. You lose a job. The event: your employment ended. This has practical implications you'll need to address. But the suffering often comes from added judgments. This is catastrophic. I'm a failure. I'll never recover. This is the worst thing that could happen. These judgments are additions, interpretations, not facts. If you can see the event more clearly without the catastrophic narrative, you can respond more effectively. Epictetus lost his freedom to slavery. That's a fact, and a serious one with real practical consequences. But he didn't add, "This is the end of me. My life is worthless. I can never be happy. This is unbearable." If he had accepted those judgments, he would have been destroyed. Instead, he saw more clearly, "I'm enslaved legally. This limits my external options. But my capacity for reason and choice remains free. I can still develop my mind. I can still practice virtue. My essential self is unharmed." This clarity saved him. You can practice this same clarity with your own circumstances. Whatever difficulty you're facing, separate the factual event from your judgments about it. The event is what it is. The judgments are optional, and they're where most of the suffering lives. This doesn't minimize real hardship. Some events are genuinely difficult and create real problems. But adding layers of catastrophic judgment on top of the difficulty just makes everything harder. Seeing clearly allows you to respond more effectively. Epictetus also taught about desire and aversion, about what we pursue and what we avoid. He said that freedom requires training our desires and aversions properly. If you desire things not up to you, you'll be perpetually frustrated because you can't guarantee getting them. If you're averse to things not up to you, you'll live in constant fear because you can't guarantee avoiding them. This is a recipe for suffering. The solution is to desire only what's up to you and be averse only to what's up to you. Desire virtue, wisdom, good character, right intention. These are completely in your power. You can always choose them regardless of circumstances. Be averse to vice, foolishness, bad character, wrong intention. These are in your power to avoid. You never have to choose them regardless of what pressures you face. If your desires and aversions are properly oriented, you can be satisfied in any circumstance. This doesn't mean you can't prefer certain external outcomes. Epictetus called these preferred indifference. It's natural and reasonable to prefer health to sickness, wealth to poverty, good reputation to bad reputation. But these preferences should be light, not desperate. You prefer them, but you don't need them for your well-being. You can be okay either way because your essential good, your virtue and wisdom, doesn't depend on which way externals go. A student asked Epictetus, "Should I not care at all about wealth or health or relationships?" Epictetus said, "Of course care about them. Work for them when appropriate. But don't make your peace depend on having them. They're preferable but not necessary for your true good. If you have them, use them well. If you lose them, remain yourself. Your essential worth and capacity for virtue are independent of these externals. This is a middle way between extreme detachment and desperate attachment. You're engaged with life, you have preferences, you work toward goals. But you're not enslaved by these pursuits. You can genuinely prefer success while being okay with failure. You can truly value relationships while accepting they might end. You can care for your health while knowing you can't guarantee it. This is freedom within engagement, peace within effort. Epictetus's own life demonstrated this. He valued his freedom and was probably pleased when he gained it. But his well-being didn't depend on it. He was already free internally before any legal status changed. When he was exiled from Rome, he didn't rage against it or resist it futilely. He accepted what wasn't up to him and focused on what was. Establishing his school in Nicopolis, continuing to teach, living according to his principles. The external change didn't disturb his essential freedom. For us, this teaching means we can pursue our goals without being destroyed if we don't achieve them. We can love people without being devastated if we lose them. We can care for our bodies without panicking when they age or sicken. We can work hard for success while maintaining equanimity in failure. This is not cold or uncaring. This wise care that recognizes what's truly in our power and what isn't. Another core teaching from Epictetus. Everything has two handles. You can pick up any situation by one handle or the other. One handle makes it bearable. The other makes it unbearable. Your job is to learn which handle is which and to consistently choose the bearable one. The unbearable handle is usually judgment, resistance, demanding that things be different than they are. The bearable handle is usually acceptance, focus on what you can control, maintaining your character. Someone insults you. One handle. They insulted me. This is terrible. They're awful. I'm humiliated. That handle is unbearable. It makes you suffer. The other handle. They spoke harshly. That's their choice. I don't have to accept their judgment of me. I can respond with dignity. That handle is bearable. Same event, different relationship to it, completely different experience. You face a setback. One handle. This is catastrophic. Everything is ruined. I can't handle this. Life is unfair. Unbearable. Other handle. This is difficult. It's not what I wanted, but it's a situation I can work with. I'll find a way forward. This doesn't define me. Bearable. The setback is the same. Your relationship to it determines whether it crushes you or challenges you. Epictetus taught that developing wisdom is largely about learning to consistently choose the bearable handle. This requires practice because habit and emotion often reach for the unbearable handle first. You have to train yourself to pause, recognize you're picking up the unbearable handle, put it down, and consciously choose the bearable one instead. With enough practice, this becomes more natural. The bearable handle becomes your default. He also taught about the proper attitude toward roles and relationships. You have various roles, perhaps parent, child, spouse, friend, employee, citizen. These roles come with appropriate duties and behaviors. A wise person fulfills their roles well, not because outcomes are guaranteed, but because fulfilling your role well is what's up to you. The response you get from others, the outcome of your efforts, these are not up to you. But your faithful performance of your role is. A father came to Epictetus distressed because his son was rebellious and wouldn't listen to his guidance. The father felt like a failure. Epictetus asked, "Have you been a good father? Have you provided for your son, taught him as best you could?" treated him with appropriate care. The father admitted he had. Epictetus said, "Then you've done your job. Your son's choices are his business now. You can't control whether he listens. You can only control whether you fulfill your role as father faithfully. You've done that. Release the rest." This is hard for parents, for anyone who cares about others. We want our care to guarantee good outcomes. We want our children to thrive, our students to learn, our friends to be happy. But we don't control these outcomes. All we control is faithful performance of our role. We care well, teach well, friend well. The response we get is not up to us. We have to be okay with doing our part well, even if the outcome isn't what we hoped. The same applies to all roles. A good employee does good work. Whether they're appreciated or promoted isn't entirely up to them. A good citizen contributes to society. Whether society improves is not up to them alone. A good friend offers genuine friendship. Whether it's reciprocated isn't up to them. The focus is always on what's up to you. Faithful performance of your role, regardless of outcomes. Epictetus was very clear that this doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment or staying in genuinely harmful situations. If someone consistently abuses your friendship, you can end the friendship. That's within your power. If a job is destructive, you can seek another. That's appropriate action in your domain. But you do these things from clarity about your role and your power, not from reactive emotion or desperate attachment to particular outcomes. One of his students was in an abusive relationship and kept hoping the other person would change. Epictetus finally said, "You can't change them. That's not your role or your power. Your role is to recognize when a situation is harmful and to remove yourself from it if possible. Stop waiting for them to become who you want them to be. Deal with who they actually are. If that's not acceptable, act accordingly. But stop tormenting yourself trying to control what you can't control." This clarity about roles and power is liberating. You stop trying to do other people's work for them. You stop taking responsibility for outcomes you don't control. You focus on your actual role, your actual power, and you fulfill that faithfully. This is all you can do, and it's enough. The weight of trying to control everything lifts. The burden of feeling responsible for others' choices releases. You're free to do your part well without being crushed by results you can't determine. Epictetus also taught extensively about how to relate to externals while maintaining freedom. Externals are everything outside your own mind and choices. Your body, possessions, relationships, reputation, status, circumstances. The key teaching: use externals appropriately, but don't depend on them for your well-being. They're tools or temporary loans, not the foundation of your life. Think of your body this way. It's useful, you should care for it reasonably, but it's not ultimately yours to control. It will age, sicken, and die regardless of your care. If you make your peace depend on your body remaining healthy and strong, you're building on sand. Instead, use your body well while you have it. Appreciate its capacities, but know that your essential self, your capacity for wisdom and virtue, doesn't depend on physical condition. Epictetus lived this teaching. His body was damaged and limited. He walked with a limp, but he didn't make his well-being depend on physical capacity. He used the body he had, limited as it was, to do what mattered: teach, think, live virtuously. When students complained about physical ailments, he'd point to himself. "I have a bad leg. Does that mean I should complain and give up? Or should I use what I have and not let what I lack determine my peace?" The same principle applies to possessions. Use what you have, be grateful for it, but hold it lightly. Everything you own can be lost. Fire, theft, economic collapse, 1,000 causes can take it. If your peace depends on keeping what you have, you'll live in constant fear of loss. Instead, appreciate possessions while you have them, use them well, but know you could lose them and still be yourself, still capable of wisdom and virtue. Seneca, another Stoic, was enormously wealthy and then lost everything when exiled. He found that he was actually more peaceful in exile with nothing than he had been in Rome with vast wealth. Why? Because in losing everything, he proved to himself that his well-being didn't depend on externals. He still had his capacity for thought, for friendship, for living philosophically. The loss of possessions revealed what couldn't be lost: his essential self. Epictetus owned almost nothing by choice. He lived in extreme simplicity. Some accounts say he didn't even lock his door because there was nothing worth stealing. This voluntary poverty was his way of demonstrating that well-being doesn't require possessions. He was content, even joyful, with almost nothing. This proved his teaching: if you don't depend on externals, you can be free and at peace in any material condition. For most of us, such extreme simplicity isn't necessary or even desirable. We have responsibilities that require resources, but we can adopt the spirit of Epictetus's teaching. Use what you have without depending on it. Appreciate your possessions without being enslaved to them. Work for material security, but don't make your peace conditional on achieving it. Live simply enough that you know you could survive with less if necessary. Reputation was another external Epictetus addressed directly. People care enormously about what others think of them. They'll sacrifice their integrity, waste their time, live inauthentically, all to maintain good reputation. Epictetus said this is slavery. You're letting others' opinions control you. You're making your peace depend on judgments in other minds, judgments you can't control and that change constantly anyway. The alternative: be good, actually good in character, and let your reputation be whatever it will be. Some will see your goodness and speak well of you. Others won't or will speak badly despite your goodness. You can't control this. What you can control is being actually good, maintaining your integrity, living according to your values. Do this consistently and let reputation take care of itself. A student asked, "But shouldn't I care about my reputation? Don't I need good reputation to be effective in the world?" Epictetus replied, "Care about being worthy of good reputation. That's up to you. The reputation itself is not up to you. Some people with terrible character have good reputations for a time. Some people with excellent character are slandered. You can't control the gap between who you are and what people think of you. Control who you actually are. That's your business. This is tremendously freeing. You don't have to manage others' perceptions constantly. You don't have to craft an image or defend yourself against every criticism. You just have to be good, actually good, and let others think what they will. If they see your goodness, fine. If they don't, that's their limitation, not your problem. You're free from the exhausting work of reputation management. Epictetus was equally direct about relationships. Love people, care for them, invest in relationships, but recognize that you don't control them. They have their own wills, their own paths, their own choices. You can offer friendship but not compel it. You can love but not guarantee being loved in return. You can care but not determine outcomes. The relationship itself, what it becomes, involves two wills and countless factors outside your control. This doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means loving without possessiveness, caring without desperate attachment, investing without making your well-being depend entirely on the other person's response. It means recognizing that everyone you love will die someday, or you will ending the relationship. Accepting this truth helps you appreciate the time you have together without clinging so desperately that you suffer constantly from fear of loss. He taught his students to practice this. When you kiss your child goodnight, remember that they're mortal. When you embrace your spouse, know they could die tonight. When you enjoy a friend's company, recognize it's temporary. This isn't morbid, it's realistic, and strangely, it increases appreciation. When you know something is temporary, you value it more while you have it. When you accept that loss is possible, you're more present with what's here now. A student objected, "But if I'm always remembering that I'll lose those I love, won't I be sad all the time?" Epictetus said, "No, you'll be grateful all the time. You'll appreciate them while they're here instead of taking them for granted. And when loss comes, as it inevitably does, you won't be destroyed because you always knew it was possible. You loved knowing it was temporary. That's wise love, mature love, free love." Epictetus also taught about adversity and how to relate to difficulty when it comes. His teaching, "Every difficulty is an opportunity to practice virtue. You can't control whether difficulties arise, but you can control how you respond to them. In fact, difficulties are where you prove your character. Anyone can maintain equanimity when everything is easy. Your character shows in how you handle hardship." When his leg was broken, Epictetus didn't rage or despair. He accepted what had happened and focused on what he could control. His response to pain, his continued development of mind, his maintenance of dignity despite mistreatment. The broken leg became an opportunity to practice what he was learning from Musonius Rufus. It demonstrated that his freedom didn't depend on physical wholeness. Later, when teaching, he'd use his own experience to illustrate principles. "I have a bad leg. Is that up to me? No. How I relate to having a bad leg, that's up to me. I can complain, feel sorry for myself, let it limit me beyond its actual limitation. Or I can accept it, work with it, not let it determine my peace." Which makes more sense? Students seeing him live this way learned more powerfully than from any abstract lecture. You face your own difficulties. None are up to you in their arising. You didn't choose them, can't prevent them, wouldn't select them if given choice. But they're here. Now what? Do you respond with wisdom or with useless resistance? Do you accept what you can't change and focus on what you can? Do you let difficulty defeat you or do you let it develop you? This is always your choice, and it's always available regardless of what the difficulty is. Epictetus would say, "Don't waste the difficulty. It's here anyway. You can't make it go away by complaining or resisting. Use it. Let it teach you. Let it strengthen you. Let it prove that your peace doesn't depend on circumstances being easy." Every hardship is training in philosophy, opportunity to practice what you believe, chance to discover that you're more resilient than you thought. This doesn't mean seeking out hardship or being foolish about risks. It means when hardship comes, as it inevitably does, responding with wisdom rather than being broken by it. It means seeing challenge as opportunity rather than as catastrophe. It means trusting that you can handle what comes because handling it is always a matter of how you respond, and response is always in your power. One of his most powerful teachings, "You are not harmed by what happens to you. You're only harmed by your judgments about what happens. Your body can be hurt, your circumstances can worsen, your possessions can be taken. But your essential self, your capacity for virtue and wisdom, cannot be harmed unless you harm it yourself through bad judgment or choice. No external force can make you less capable of wisdom. Only you can do that by choosing foolishness. This is why Epictetus could say he was freer than his master. His master could hurt his body but couldn't touch his essential self. His master could control his time and location but couldn't control his mind and judgment. His master could own him legally but couldn't own his soul. The only one who could harm Epictetus's essential self was Epictetus himself, by choosing badly. And he refused to do that, so he remained free. You face situations that feel harmful. Perhaps someone treats you poorly. Perhaps you suffer a loss. Perhaps circumstances turn against you. These are real challenges with practical implications. But are you harmed in your essential self? Only if you let yourself be. Only if you accept harmful judgments. This makes me worthless. I can't recover from this. I'm destroyed. These judgments are optional. You can see more clearly. This is difficult, but I remain capable of wisdom. My essential worth is unchanged. I can find a way forward. Epictetus also taught about philosophy as medicine for the soul. Just as you'd go to a doctor when your body is sick, you should go to a philosopher when your soul is troubled. And the philosopher's job is not to make you feel good temporarily, but to actually heal you by correcting the judgments that create suffering. This might be uncomfortable, like surgery is uncomfortable, but it's necessary for healing. He was known for being quite direct with students, challenging their assumptions, refusing to let them continue in patterns that cause suffering. When a student complained about their circumstances, he'd ask, "Is that up to you?" When they said no, he'd ask, "Then why are you disturbing yourself over it?" This directness could be jarring, but it was meant to break through habitual patterns and create real change. His school in Nicopolis wasn't about abstract philosophy debated for intellectual pleasure. It was about transformation, about actually becoming free through understanding and practice. Students came troubled by various forms of suffering and left with tools to address the real sources of that suffering. Mistaken judgments, desires for what's not up to them, aversion to what they can't avoid, identification with externals rather than with their essential rational capacity. Modern therapy, particularly cognitive behavioral therapy, echoes many of Epictetus's insights. The idea that thoughts and interpretations create emotional experience, that challenging and changing thoughts can change how you feel, that distinguishing what you can control from what you can't reduces anxiety. These are all Epictetean principles applied in contemporary form. His philosophy isn't just ancient wisdom. It's practical psychology that works. For us tonight, lying here with whatever troubles we carry, Epictetus offers immediate practical help. Most of our troubles come from the same sources his students' troubles came from: wanting to control what we can't control, making our peace depend on externals, accepting judgments that create suffering, forgetting what's actually up to us and what isn't. The solution is the same. Examine your judgments, distinguish your power from what's not in your power, focus on what's actually yours. What judgments are you holding right now that create suffering? What are you trying to control that's not up to you? What have you made your peace depend on that you don't actually control? These are the questions Epictetus would ask, and he wouldn't let you avoid them with excuses or distractions. He'd persistently bring you back to what's actually in your power and what you're actually choosing in this moment. The freedom Epictetus discovered and taught is radical and complete. It's not partial freedom that depends on circumstances being favorable. It's not temporary freedom that lasts only as long as things go well. It's fundamental freedom that exists in any circumstance because it rests on what can't be taken from you, your capacity for choice and judgment. This freedom was available to a slave in chains. It's available to you regardless of what chains, literal or metaphorical, you're currently experiencing. As we prepare to go deeper into how Epictetus's teaching applies to specific areas of life, rest in what we've explored so far. The foundation is clear. Distinguish what's up to you from what isn't. Focus your energy on what's up to you. Accept what isn't up to you. Examine your judgments before accepting them. Choose the bearable handle. Fulfill your roles faithfully without depending on outcomes. Use externals without depending on them. Respond to difficulty with wisdom. Remember that you can't be harmed in your essential self unless you harm yourself through bad judgment. These aren't just ideas. They're practices. They're tools you can use immediately. They're how a slave found freedom. They're how you can find freedom. The circumstances of your life may not change immediately, but your relationship to those circumstances can change right now through understanding and choice. That's your power. That's your freedom. That's what Epictetus discovered and what he offers to you. Let's explore how Epictetus taught his students to apply these principles to specific life challenges. His school in Nicopolis wasn't abstract philosophy. It was intensely practical, focused on real problems people face. Students came with anxieties, griefs, anger, fear, and Epictetus showed them how these experiences arise from judgments and how different judgments create different experiences. One common issue students brought was fear of death. Death seemed terrible, the ultimate loss, something to dread and avoid thinking about. Epictetus would ask, "Is death up to you? Can you prevent it?" Students had to admit they couldn't. Then you're disturbing yourself over what's not in your power. Moreover, you're disturbing yourself over something that's completely natural. Every living thing dies. Why should you be exempt? He'd continue, "What exactly do you fear? The moment of death? That moment will be brief, and you won't experience anything after. The non-existence after death? You were non-existent for billions of years before birth. Was that terrible? The loss of life? You're losing what you were always going to lose anyway. Everything is temporary loan. Death is just the universe calling in the loan." Then he'd shift to what's actually up to you. You can't control whether you die or when, but you can control how you live until then. You can control whether you waste your life in fear of its end or use it well while you have it. You can control whether you develop your character. You can control whether your final moments, whenever they come, find you having lived with integrity. This is your power. Focus there. This teaching transformed students' relationship with mortality. Instead of constant dread poisoning their days, they gained clarity. Death will come, that's certain and not up to them. What's up to them is living well now, developing character, appreciating life while they have it. This shift from fearing the unavoidable to living well in the present created profound peace. He'd often say, "Death is not terrible. If it were, it would have appeared so to Socrates." Socrates faced death calmly, even cheerfully, because he understood that death is natural and that his essential self, his capacity for wisdom and virtue, had been well used during life. What mattered wasn't how long he lived, but how well. Epictetus taught the same. Focus on living well, and death takes care of itself. It's not in your power anyway. Another common challenge: anger at others who wrong you. Students would come furious about mistreatment, betrayal, injustice. Epictetus would listen and then ask, "Did you expect people to be perfect? Did you think everyone would treat you fairly? Why are you surprised when people act according to their nature and understanding?" He'd explain, "That person wronged you because they don't understand true good. They think something external is worth wronging you for. They're ignorant. Do you get angry at a child for being childish? Do you rage at a blind person for not seeing? Then why rage at an ignorant person for acting ignorantly? If anything, pity them. They're harming themselves far more than they're harming you. But he wouldn't stop there. He'd ask, are they actually harming you? They may have harmed your reputation or your possessions or your body, but can they harm your essential self? Only if you let them by accepting harmful judgments. If you maintain your character, if you respond with wisdom rather than reactive anger, they haven't truly harmed you. They've only provided an opportunity for you to practice virtue. This teaching didn't mean accepting mistreatment passively. Epictetus would say you can and should set boundaries. Remove yourself from harmful situations. Seek justice when appropriate. But do these things from clarity and wisdom, not from rage and desire for revenge. Handle the practical situation while maintaining your inner peace. Don't let others' wrong actions disturb your essential self. He'd give examples from his own life. When his master mistreated him, did he rage internally? Did he let it destroy his peace? No. He maintained his essential freedom by not accepting judgments like, "This makes me worthless," or "My life is ruined." He saw the situation clearly. My body is being harmed. That's unfortunate, but not up to me. My essential self remains free. My capacity for wisdom and virtue is unaffected. This cannot touch what truly matters. Students would object, but that's so hard. How can I not be angry when someone wrongs me? Epictetus would say, it's hard because you haven't practiced enough. An athlete finds difficult exercises hard at first too. With practice, they become easier. Same with philosophy. Practice examining your judgments. Practice distinguishing what's up to you from what isn't. Practice responding with wisdom. It becomes more natural with repetition. He taught specific practices for working with anger. When you feel anger rising, pause. Ask yourself, what judgment am I making that creates this anger? Usually something like, they shouldn't have done that. This is terrible. They're awful. Now examine these judgments. Is shouldn't based in reality? People do all kinds of things. Expecting them not to do what they're capable of doing is unrealistic. Is it terrible? In what sense? Inconvenient, unpleasant, unjust perhaps, but terrible means unendurable, and you're clearly enduring it. By examining the judgments creating anger, you weaken anger's grip. You see that it's based on expectations that don't match reality. This doesn't excuse the wrong, but it helps you respond more effectively. From calm clarity, you can address the situation wisely. From reactive rage, you usually make things worse. Epictetus also addressed grief, which students brought to him regularly. Someone dies, a relationship ends, a hoped-for outcome doesn't materialize, and the student is overcome with grief. Epictetus would first validate the feeling, you're grieving because you cared. That's natural and human. Don't add the burden of thinking you shouldn't feel this way. But then he'd examine the grief with them. What judgments intensify your grief? Probably, this should not have happened. This is unbearable. I can't go on. Are these judgments true? Death happens to everyone. Loss is part of life. As for unbearable, you're bearing it right now, so it's clearly bearable, however painful. As for not going on, life does continue whether you feel ready or not. The question is whether you'll continue well or continue while making yourself more miserable through harmful judgments. He'd remind them, when you loved this person, did you love them as immortal? Did you believe they'd never die? If you did, you were deceiving yourself. Everything that lives dies. Everyone you love will die or you'll die first. This was always true. It's not a special cruelty visited upon you. It's the nature of existence. Accepting this doesn't diminish love. It makes love more poignant, more precious, more present. The teaching, grieve but grieve wisely. Feel the pain of loss without adding unnecessary suffering through resistance to reality. Honor what was without clinging to what's gone. Remember with gratitude while accepting that the person or thing is past. Use the grief as a reminder to appreciate what you still have while you have it. Let loss teach you about impermanence and the preciousness of the present. Students sometimes thought this teaching was cold, that Epictetus was telling them not to feel grief. He'd correct them, feel everything. I'm not telling you to suppress emotions. I'm teaching you not to add unnecessary suffering on top of natural pain. Natural pain, sadness at loss, added suffering. This is unbearable. Why did this happen to me? I can never be happy again. The pain is real and appropriate. The added suffering is optional and based on false judgments. Epictetus taught extensively about desire and how to work with it. Desire itself isn't bad. You're a living being. Desire is natural. But many desires create suffering because they're for things not up to you. You desire others' approval, but their thoughts aren't yours to control. You desire guaranteed success, but outcomes depend on countless factors beyond your power. You desire to avoid all pain, but pain is part of being embodied and alive. These desires set you up for constant frustration. The solution isn't to eliminate all desire, but to train it. Desire things that are actually up to you, your character, your wisdom, your virtue, your right intention. These you can always choose in any circumstance. You can always practice wisdom, regardless of whether you're rich or poor, healthy or sick, approved or scorned. If your desire is for virtue, you can always satisfy it. This creates peace because you're desiring what's actually in your power. For externals, prefer them lightly rather than desiring them desperately. It's natural to prefer comfort, health, success. But hold these preferences lightly. If you get what you prefer, fine. If you don't, you're still okay because your well-being doesn't depend on it. This is the middle way, engaged with life and having preferences, but not enslaved by desires for what you don't control. A student asked, "But how do I achieve anything if I don't desire it strongly?" Epictetus said, "Desire creates motivation, yes, but desperate desire creates anxiety and makes you more likely to fail because you're tense and grasping. Prefer success, work toward it with full effort, but hold the outcome lightly. This paradoxically makes success more likely because you're not paralyzed by fear of failure. And if failure comes, you're not destroyed." He taught that most people are enslaved by their desires. They think they're free because they can pursue what they want. But if what you want is outside your control, you're enslaved to circumstances. You're dependent on things working out your way. You're vulnerable to constant disappointment. Real freedom is wanting what you can always have: virtue, wisdom, good character. These are yours to choose every moment. Epictetus also addressed anxiety about the future, which kept many students awake at night, just as it might be keeping you awake now. Students would come worried about upcoming challenges, uncertain outcomes, potential losses. He'd ask, "Has the feared thing happened yet?" They'd say no. Then you're suffering over imagination, not reality. You're disturbing your present moment with fantasies about a future that may never arrive. He'd continue, "Can you handle the present moment?" Usually they could. Then you can handle whatever actually comes. You'll meet it when it arrives, and you'll respond from your capacity then. But now, Now the feared thing isn't happening. Now you have this moment which is manageable. Why waste it suffering about imagined futures? He taught that anxiety about the future comes from false beliefs, that you must control outcomes, that you can't handle difficulty, that uncertainty is unbearable. All false. You can't control outcomes fully, but you can respond wisely to whatever happens. You've handled every difficulty so far, or you wouldn't be here. Uncertainty is simply reality. The future is always uncertain. Accepting this is freedom. Fighting it is futile. The practice. When anxiety about the future arises, examine it. What specifically are you anxious about? Is it up to you? If yes, do what you can now and release worry about the outcome. If no, recognize you're worrying about what you can't control. Return to the present moment, which is what actually exists and where your power actually lives. Students would say, "But I need to plan for the future." Epictetus would agree, "Yes, plan. Prepare reasonably. But planning and anxious worry are different. Planning is taking appropriate action now. Worry is suffering now about possibilities later. Plan, then release. Do what's up to you now, and trust that you'll handle what comes when it actually comes." He gave an example. You're taking a voyage. You prepare the ship, check supplies, choose a favorable time to sail. These are up to you. Then you set out. The weather during the voyage? Not up to you. Pirates? Not up to you. Arriving safely? Not entirely up to you. Do you spend the whole voyage worried about things you can't control? Or do you do what you can, sail skillfully, and accept that the outcome is not entirely yours to determine? Epictetus taught about wealth and poverty from direct experience. He'd lived with nothing as a slave, then lived simply with few possessions as a free teacher. He knew both conditions intimately. His teaching, neither determines your well-being. You can be wealthy and miserable if you're enslaved by desire for more, fear of loss, and false belief that your worth comes from possessions. You can be poor and content if you desire little, appreciate what you have, and know your worth comes from character. He'd point out that many wealthy people are the least free. They're obsessed with increasing wealth, terrified of losing it, constantly comparing themselves to even wealthier people. They're enslaved by possessions that were meant to serve them. Meanwhile, someone with little who wants little and knows their worth isn't in possessions is genuinely free. They're not dependent on maintaining or increasing wealth for their peace. This doesn't mean poverty is better than wealth or that you shouldn't work for material security. It means your relationship to wealth determines whether it serves you or enslaves you. If you have wealth, use it well, be grateful for it, but know you could lose it and still be yourself. If you lack wealth, work for it if appropriate, but don't make your worth or peace depend on getting it. He taught his students to practice voluntary discomfort occasionally. Sleep on the floor sometimes. Eat simple food. Go without conveniences briefly. This practice shows you that you can be okay with less, that your well-being doesn't require constant comfort, that discomfort is bearable. When you know this experientially, you're less afraid of potential loss. You're more free because you're not desperately clinging to your current level of comfort. A wealthy student was anxious about potentially losing his money. Epictetus told him, "Spend a day living as if you've already lost it. Wear simple clothes. Eat plain food. Notice that you're okay. You're still yourself. You still have your capacity for wisdom. The wealth is preferable, certainly, but it's not necessary for your essential well-being." Knowing this removes the anxiety. Epictetus also taught about social relationships and how to maintain freedom within them. He taught his students to love people genuinely while not making their own peace depend on being loved in return. Offer real friendship while knowing that the other person may not reciprocate. Care for family while accepting that you can't control their choices or their fate. This teaching was challenging. How do you care deeply without attachment? How do you love without fear of loss? Epictetus would say, you care for people's true good, their character and wisdom. This caring is always appropriate because it's focused on what actually matters. But you don't cling desperately to them staying in your life forever or becoming who you want them to be. You accept their nature and choices while offering what good you can. He'd remind students that every person they love is temporary. They're mortal, which means death will end the relationship eventually. Even before death, people change, move away, make choices that end relationships. Accepting this impermanence doesn't mean not loving. It means loving with open hands rather than grasping tightly. It means appreciating people while you have them without clinging to them remaining unchanged forever. This is hard teaching. We want to believe our loved ones will stay forever. We want to control their choices, their health, their continuation in our lives. But we can't. Epictetus knew this from his own experience. As a slave, he had no guaranteed continuity with anyone. People could be sold away, die, change circumstances. This forced acceptance of impermanence in relationships. He carried that acceptance into his teaching. For modern students, this might mean accepting that your children will grow up and leave. Your parents will age and die. Your spouse might change or the relationship might end. Your friends might move or drift away. These are painful realities, but accepting them allows you to appreciate relationships while they exist rather than spending the whole time anxious about their eventual end. Epictetus taught practical skills for difficult conversations and conflict. When someone angers you, pause before responding. Examine your initial judgment. Ask whether your response will make things better or worse. Remember that you can't control their behavior, only your response. Choose a response aligned with wisdom and virtue, not with reactive emotion. He'd role-play scenarios with students. Someone insults you publicly. What do? The student might say, I'd be furious and insult them back. Epictetus would ask, is that wise? Does escalating help? Or does it make you look as foolish as them? What if instead you responded calmly or even with humor or simply ignored it? You'd maintain your dignity while they lose theirs. Who's really harmed? He taught that most conflicts escalate because both parties are reacting from emotion rather than responding from wisdom. If one person can break the cycle by responding wisely, often the conflict de-escalates. You can't control whether the other person responds wisely, but you can control your own response. That's your power, and often it's enough to change the entire dynamic. For ongoing difficult relationships, perhaps with a challenging family member or coworker, Epictetus taught acceptance of their nature combined with wise boundaries. Don't expect them to be different than they are. They've shown you who they are. Believe them. Accept this while protecting yourself appropriately. You can't change them, but you can limit their impact on you. A student had a verbally abusive parent. He kept hoping the parent would change, seeking approval that never came, being hurt repeatedly. Epictetus said, "Stop expecting figs from a thorn bush. This person is showing you their nature. Accept it. You can still treat them respectfully as your parent, but stop seeking from them what they can't or won't give. Find approval in your own character, not in their words. And limit contact if necessary to protect your peace." This might seem harsh, but Epictetus saw it as realistic kindness. The student was suffering from false expectations. Accepting reality, however painful, allowed the student to stop suffering from constantly disappointed hopes and instead engage with the actual person and situation. It's not giving up on the relationship. It's accepting it as it actually is rather than as you wish it were. Epictetus also taught about duty and obligation. We have genuine duties arising from our roles and relationships. As a child, you have duties to parents. As a parent, duties to children. As a citizen, duties to community. These duties aren't always pleasant, but fulfilling them is part of living well. The key is to fulfill duties from choice and wisdom, not from resentment or mere obligation. He'd say, you chose to have children, or you found yourself with them. Either way, they're yours to care for. Do it faithfully, not because you must, but because doing your duty well is virtuous. The outcome, whether they appreciate you or turn out how you hope, that's not up to you. Your faithful performance of your role, that's completely up to you. This transforms duty from burden to opportunity. You're not resentfully doing what you must. You're choosing to fulfill your role well because that's who you want to be. The external compulsion becomes internal choice. This is freedom even within obligation. You're not enslaved by duty when you freely choose to fulfill it as expression of your character. He addressed questions about when to stay in situations and when to leave. His answer wasn't absolute. It required wisdom and attention to circumstance. Generally, stay when you can maintain your character and potentially improve things. Leave when staying would require you to violate your values or when the situation is genuinely harmful with no prospect of improvement. A student was in a job that required unethical behavior. Epictetus said, "Can you do this job while maintaining your integrity?" The student said no. Then you know what to do. Your character is more important than any job. Find other work if possible. If truly impossible, endure it temporarily while seeking escape, but don't corrupt yourself. Better to be poor with integrity than wealthy with vice. Another student wanted to leave a difficult marriage. Epictetus asked, "Can you be a good spouse in this marriage? Can you maintain your character?" The student could. "Have you done everything reasonably possible to improve it?" "Not yet." "Then stay and do your part faithfully. Perhaps it improves, perhaps it doesn't, but you fulfill your role. If after genuine effort the situation is harmful with no prospect of change, leaving might be wise. But don't leave merely because it's difficult. Stay and practice virtue unless staying itself would require vice. Epictetus taught extensively about how to maintain equanimity through change and uncertainty. Life is constant change. Circumstances shift. People come and go. Your body ages. Nothing stays the same. Many people resist this truth and suffer from the resistance. Accepting change, accepting impermanence, creates peace. He'd remind students, everything you have is borrowed. Your body, your possessions, your relationships, even your life itself. They're loans from nature, and nature will call them in eventually. When you receive them gratefully as loans. When they're taken, return them gracefully. Don't cling desperately to what was always temporary. This teaching helps with loss. When you lose something or someone, you're not losing what was truly yours forever. You're returning what was borrowed. This doesn't eliminate grief, but it removes the added suffering of, "This shouldn't have happened," or "I can never recover." It was always going to happen eventually. You can recover because you still have what can't be borrowed or taken, your capacity for wisdom and virtue. Epictetus also taught about how to handle success and failure, both of which can disturb peace if you relate to them wrongly. Success can inflate ego, create fear of loss, make you dependent on continued success. Failure can devastate if you identify with it. The key: neither success nor failure touches your essential worth, which comes from your character, not from outcomes. When things go well, be grateful and use the success well. But know it's not permanent and your worth doesn't come from it. You were worthy before success. You'll be worthy if it ends. When things go badly, feel the disappointment but know it doesn't diminish you. You're still capable of wisdom and virtue. You can learn from failure and try again or try something else. The outcome doesn't determine who you are. He'd often say, "Are you an archer? Then your job is to shoot well. Whether the arrow hits the target depends partly on you, partly on wind and other factors outside your control. You can control shooting well. You can't completely control hitting the target. Judge yourself by what you control. Did you shoot well? Then you succeeded at what's actually up to you, regardless of where the arrow landed." This is tremendously freeing in any endeavor. You do your work well. You can't guarantee the result because results depend on factors beyond you. But you can always control the quality of your effort and intention. That's enough. That's what's actually up to you. Outcomes matter in practical terms, certainly, but your worth and your peace shouldn't depend on them. Epictetus taught that philosophy should change how you live, not just how you think. He had little patience for students who learned principles intellectually but didn't apply them. He'd ask, "Has your study made you less angry, less fearful, more free? If not, what's the point?" Philosophy is medicine for the soul, and medicine should heal. If you're still sick, you're not taking the medicine correctly. He pushed students to practice constantly. When fear arises, practice examining it. When desire arises, practice questioning whether it's for what's in your power. When someone angers you, practice pausing and choosing your response. When loss occurs, practice accepting it without added suffering. When anxiety about the future emerges, practice returning to the present. Every moment is opportunity to practice. He compared it to athletic training. An athlete doesn't just learn about techniques. They practice until techniques become natural. Similarly, a philosopher shouldn't just learn about principles. They should practice until wise responses become natural. This requires years of patient effort. There's no shortcut, but the effort is worthwhile because it creates genuine freedom. Students sometimes wanted easier answers. Just tell me the rule for every situation. But Epictetus taught that wisdom is about developing judgment, not following rules mechanically. Different situations require different responses. The judgment to know which response is appropriate comes from practice and development of practical wisdom. You can't get this from a book. You have to live it. He was also realistic about backsliding. Students would make progress, then revert to old patterns under stress. Instead of being harsh, Epictetus would remind them, "You're training. Athletes don't become perfect immediately. They improve gradually with persistent practice. You'll have setbacks. Learn from them and continue practicing. The only real failure is giving up." This encouragement was important because the path of philosophy is challenging. Old patterns are deeply ingrained. The world constantly reinforces messages contrary to Stoic teaching. Cultural values often emphasize externals, competition, getting more, being better than others. Maintaining philosophical practice in such an environment requires persistent effort and regular return to principles. Epictetus created a community of practice in Nicopolis partly to support this ongoing effort. Students could remind each other of principles, encourage each other when struggling, challenge each other when falling into old patterns. He knew that practicing alone is harder than practicing with others committed to the same path. Community supports transformation. For us, isolated individuals practicing Stoic philosophy, this might mean finding community, even virtual community, with others on similar paths. Or it might mean regular reading of Stoic texts as a way of staying connected to the tradition. Or finding a friend or family member to practice with, discussing principles and supporting each other's growth. As we prepare to move into the practical applications of Epictetus's teaching, let's consolidate what we've explored in this segment. We've seen how he taught students to work with fear, anger, grief, desire, anxiety, relationships, duty, change, success, and failure. In every case, the approach is similar. Examine your judgments, distinguish what's up to you from what isn't, focus on your character and response rather than on outcomes you can't control. We've seen that Epictetus didn't offer easy answers or promise that philosophy eliminates difficulty. Life is difficult for everyone in various ways. What philosophy offers is a way to navigate difficulty without being destroyed by it, to maintain freedom within any circumstance, to find peace not through perfect conditions but through wisdom about what actually matters and what's actually in your power. His teaching comes from lived experience of limitation and suffering. He's not a privileged philosopher theorizing about hardship from comfort. He lived as a slave, experienced physical disability, endured exile, owned almost nothing. From these difficult circumstances, he discovered and taught that essential freedom doesn't depend on external conditions. It depends on understanding, judgment, and choice. This makes his teaching credible and powerful. If he could find freedom in slavery, you can find it in your circumstances. If he could maintain peace despite mistreatment and limitation, you can maintain peace despite your challenges. The path is available. The practices work. The freedom is real. It's not easy, it requires practice, but it's genuinely achievable. For you tonight, lying here with whatever concerns you carry, Epictetus offers both challenge and hope. The challenge: stop trying to control what you can't control. Stop making your peace depend on externals. Stop accepting judgments that create unnecessary suffering. This is hard because these patterns are deeply habitual. The hope: freedom is possible right now, in this circumstance, through understanding and choice. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change. You can be free now by changing your relationship to circumstances. The practices Epictetus taught his students are available to you. Examine your judgments before accepting them. Distinguish rigorously between what's up to you and what isn't. Focus your energy on what's actually in your power. Accept what isn't in your power without adding resistance and false judgments. Train your desires toward virtue and wisdom. Hold external preferences lightly. Respond to difficulty as opportunity for practice. Remember impermanence. Choose the bearable handle. Fulfill your roles faithfully without demanding particular outcomes. These aren't just ideas to think about. They're practices to do repeatedly until they become natural. Every moment offers opportunity. Every challenge is a chance to apply wisdom. Every disturbing thought is an occasion to examine judgment. Every fear is a moment to distinguish what's up to you from what isn't. The whole of life becomes your training ground, and everything that happens becomes material for practicing freedom. Epictetus proved that this works. He lived it successfully in circumstances most people would consider unbearable. His students applied his teaching in their own varied circumstances and found genuine relief and freedom. The tradition he established influenced countless people across 2 millennia. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, found in Epictetus teaching a way to maintain his center despite enormous pressures. You are heir to this tradition. The wisdom Epictetus discovered and taught is your inheritance. Not because you've done anything to earn it, but because you're human, capable of reason and choice, and these teachings are offered freely to anyone who will listen and practice. The only requirement is willingness to examine your own mind and to practice consistently. The man in chains discovered freedom that no chains could bind. The slave became freer than any master. The disabled philosopher walked farther in wisdom than most people with strong bodies walk in their entire lives. All because he understood something simple but profound. Freedom is internal, power is in choice, and no external circumstance determines your essential worth or your capacity for wisdom. This understanding is available to you right now. Not after you change your circumstances, not after you become someone different, not after you achieve some goal or solve some problem. Now, in this moment, with these circumstances, you can choose to examine your judgments and to respond with wisdom. That choice is always yours. That power is always present. That freedom is always available. This is what Epictetus taught. This is what you can practice. This is the path to genuine freedom. Let's make Epictetus's teaching immediately practical for your daily life. We've explored his philosophy in depth. Now let's see exactly how to apply it to the situations you face every day. Epictetus didn't teach abstract theory. He taught practical wisdom for real life. His students came with real problems and left with real tools. The beauty of his teaching is that it works whether you're dealing with minor frustrations or major crises. The same principle applies to traffic delays and terminal illness, to workplace conflicts and personal loss. The dichotomy of control doesn't change based on the magnitude of your challenge. What changes is your capacity to remember it, to apply it, to live by it. So let's start with something simple and common. You wake up tomorrow morning and check your phone. There's an email from your boss, your coworker, your client. The tone is critical. Your work has been questioned. Your judgment has been challenged. You feel that familiar tightening in your chest, that surge of defensive energy. This is the moment. This is where Epictetus's teaching becomes real or remains merely theoretical. First, recognize the impression. An email has arrived. Words on a screen. That's the external event. Now notice everything else. The interpretation, the emotional reaction, the story you're telling yourself about what this means. That's all internal. That's where your freedom lives. The email itself? Not up to you. It has already been sent. The words have already been chosen. Your boss's mood, their opinion, their decision to send this message. None of that is within your control. Wishing it hadn't been sent, rehearsing what you wish they had written instead, imagining how unfair they're being. This is all wasted energy directed at what you cannot change. But your response? Completely up to you. Your interpretation of those words? Your choice. Your emotional reaction? Within your power to shape. Your next action? Entirely your decision. Epictetus would ask you, what do you really control here? Not what happened, but what you do with it. Not the external event, but your internal response. So pause. This is the practice. Before you react, before you fire off a defensive reply, before you spin into anxiety or anger, pause. Create that space between impression and assent. Recognize that you're being presented with an opportunity to practice philosophy, not just think about it. Ask yourself, what judgment am I making about this email? Am I treating it as inherently harmful, or have I added that interpretation? Is this email itself the problem? Or is it my belief that I should never be criticized? never be questioned, never face challenges to my work. Now consider what's actually being asked of you here. Perhaps there's a legitimate concern you need to address. Perhaps there's miscommunication you need to clarify. Perhaps your boss is having a difficult day and this email reflects their stress more than your performance. Any of these could be true, but none of them require you to suffer. Epictetus taught that we're disturbed not by things, but by our judgments about things. The email doesn't contain the power to upset you. You grant it that power through your interpretation. You can also withdraw that power by examining your interpretation. What if you viewed this email differently? What if you saw it as information to consider rather than a verdict on your worth? What if you recognized that your boss's opinion, while worth considering, doesn't determine your value as a person? What if you remembered that facing challenges and corrections is part of developing skill and wisdom? Your response might look very different from this perspective. Instead of defending yourself reactively, you might read the email carefully to understand the concern. Instead of assuming malice, you might consider various explanations. Instead of protecting your ego, you might focus on addressing the actual issue. This doesn't mean becoming passive or accepting mistreatment. Epictetus wasn't teaching doormat philosophy. He was teaching how to maintain your freedom and dignity while engaging with challenges effectively. You can respond professionally, set boundaries if needed, clarify misunderstandings, or even disagree, all while remaining internally free from the tyranny of needing external validation. The practice is this: catch yourself in the moment of reaction. Notice the impression. Examine the judgment. Choose your response rather than being carried away by automatic patterns. Now let's apply this same process to another common situation. You're stuck in traffic. You have somewhere important to be. The road ahead is completely stopped. Every minute feels like an eternity. You can feel frustration building. What's up to you here? The traffic? No. The other drivers? No. The timing of your appointment? Probably not at this point. The road conditions? Definitely not. So where is your freedom? Your freedom is in how you relate to this situation. The traffic is an external event. Your frustration is your judgment about the traffic. Epictetus would point out that the traffic itself isn't causing your frustration. Your belief that traffic shouldn't happen, that you should always arrive on time, that this delay is terrible, these beliefs are causing your suffering. The traffic is simply there. It's neither good nor bad in itself. It's your interpretation that makes it seem like a problem. And that interpretation is up to you. What if you viewed this delay differently? This time you didn't expect to have. You can't control the traffic, but you can control how you use this unexpected time. You could listen to something educational or enjoyable. You could practice breathing calmly. You could think through a problem you've been meaning to consider. This doesn't mean you can't take action. If there's an alternate route, take it. If you need to call ahead and explain you'll be late, make the call. But do these things from a place of responding to reality, not fighting against it. There's a profound difference between effective action and frustrated resistance. The practice here is acceptance of what you cannot control, combined with effective action regarding what you can control. You cannot control the traffic. You can control your response. You cannot control whether you'll be late. You can control whether you'll be calm or agitated while being late. Let's develop a practical morning practice based on Epictetus's teachings. The way you begin your day sets the tone for how you'll face whatever arises. Epictetus would have his students prepare themselves before entering the world, and you can do the same. When you wake, before reaching for your phone, before jumping into the day's demands, take a few moments to prepare your mind. This isn't about adding more tasks to your morning. It's about orienting yourself toward freedom before the day's challenges begin. First, remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. Acknowledge that today will bring both things within your control and things beyond it. Your task is to focus your energy on the former and accept the latter. This seems simple, but actively remembering it before you face the day makes all the difference. Say to yourself, in your own words, something like this: "Today I will encounter difficult people, frustrating situations, unexpected problems. None of these things can harm my character unless I allow them to. What happens around me is beyond my control. How I respond is completely within my power. My freedom lies in my choices, my judgments, my intentions." This isn't positive thinking or affirmation. It's preparation. You're reminding yourself of reality before reality reminds you. Epictetus prepared his students this way because he knew that in the heat of the moment, we forget what we know. Morning preparation plants these principles in your mind so they're more available when you need them. Next, consider the roles you'll play today. You might be an employee, a parent, a partner, a friend. Each role comes with certain duties and relationships. Epictetus taught that we should fulfill our roles with excellence. But remember that the role is not our essential self. You are not your job title. You are not your parental success or failure. You are the one choosing how to play these roles. Think about one or two specific situations you'll likely face today. Maybe you have a difficult meeting. Maybe you need to have a challenging conversation. Maybe you're dealing with an ongoing problem. Take a moment to imagine yourself facing this situation with philosophy. How would you apply the dichotomy of control to this specific challenge? What's within your power and what isn't? What impressions might arise and how will you examine them? What would it look like to maintain your freedom regardless of how this situation unfolds? This mental rehearsal isn't about scripting everything perfectly. It's about preparing yourself to remember your principles when it matters. Epictetus called this premeditation, and it was central to his practice. Also consider what you're most likely to forget today. For most of us, certain situations trigger automatic reactions. You know your patterns. Maybe you tend to get defensive when questioned. Maybe you seek approval obsessively. Maybe you catastrophize small problems. Whatever your tendency, acknowledge it this morning. Decide how you'd like to respond instead. This morning preparation might take 5 minutes. It might take 10. The length matters less than the quality of attention you bring to it. You're not trying to control the future. You're preparing yourself to meet whatever comes with wisdom. Now, let's talk about the evening practice. Epictetus taught that we should review our day, not to judge ourselves harshly, but to learn and improve. This is how philosophy becomes integrated into your life rather than remaining an abstract idea. In the evening, before sleep, take time to reflect. Ask yourself, where did I remember my principles today? Where did I forget them? Where did I maintain my freedom? Where did I lose it? Be specific. Don't just think vaguely about your day. Identify actual moments. Perhaps you received that critical email and you did pause before responding. Notice this. Acknowledge that you practiced successfully. This isn't pride. It's recognizing progress. Or perhaps you got caught in traffic and you spent the entire time fuming, fighting against reality, making yourself miserable. Notice this too, but without harsh self-judgment. Epictetus would ask, what judgment were you making? What could you have done differently? How will you respond next time? The goal isn't perfection. The goal is learning. Every situation you face is an opportunity to practice. Sometimes you'll remember your principles, sometimes you'll forget. Both outcomes teach you something. As you review, ask yourself these questions. When did I treat something outside my control as if it were within my control? When did I let externals disturb my peace? When did I confuse an impression with reality? When did I give assent to harmful judgments without examining them? Also ask, when did I act with wisdom? When did I maintain my dignity? When did I respond rather than react? When did I help someone? When did I fulfill my duties well? This evening review might reveal patterns. Perhaps you notice that you always struggle in the same situations. This awareness is valuable. It shows you where you need to practice more deliberately. Epictetus would say that recognizing your weakness is the first step toward strengthening it. After reviewing, let it go. Don't carry the day's failures or successes into your sleep. Tomorrow is another opportunity to practice. Your review is complete. You've learned what you can from today. Now rest. Some people find it helpful to write this review down. A simple journal where you note what went well and what could improve. This creates a record of your practice over time. But writing isn't necessary. The reflection itself is what matters. What is necessary is consistency. 5 minutes of honest reflection every evening will teach you more than hours of reading philosophy. This is how Epictetus' students learned, not just by hearing his lectures, but by examining their own lives in light of his teachings. Between the morning preparation and evening review, you create a container for your practice. You begin each day oriented toward freedom and end each day learning from your experience. Over time, this shapes how you move through life. But what about the middle? What about the actual moments when you're facing challenges? How do you remember to practice when you're in the midst of difficulty? The real practice happens in the moments when you're not thinking about practice. When you're busy, stressed, tired, overwhelmed. These are the moments that matter most. So let's develop some practical techniques for remembering your philosophy when you most need it. First, create reminders in your environment. This might seem simple, but it's effective. Epictetus' students had the advantage of studying in his school, surrounded by philosophical discussion. You live in a world designed to make you forget everything he taught. So you need to deliberately create reminders. This could be a note on your desk, a phrase on your phone's lock screen, a bracelet you wear. The specific form doesn't matter. What matters is creating moments throughout your day when you're prompted to remember. Pause, examine your impressions, focus on what's up to you. Some people use the phrase, "What's up to me?" as a touchstone. When they notice stress rising, they ask this question. It immediately redirects attention from trying to control externals to exercising choice about internals. The question itself is the practice. Others use physical sensations as reminders. When you notice tension in your shoulders, tightness in your chest, clenching in your jaw, these bodily signals often indicate that you're fighting against what you cannot control. The sensation becomes a reminder to check your judgments. You might also use transitions as practice opportunities. Every time you walk through a doorway, take a conscious breath and remember your freedom. Every time you start your car, remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. Every time you open your computer, set an intention to respond rather than react. These small moments of remembering add up. They create more and more opportunities to catch yourself before you're swept away by automatic reactions. Over time, the reminders become less necessary because the practice becomes more natural. But even with reminders, you'll still forget. You'll still find yourself caught up in anger, anxiety, frustration. This is normal. This is part of the practice. So let's talk about what to do when you notice you've forgotten. The moment you realize you've been lost in destructive thinking, you've already returned. The awareness itself is the return. Don't add a second layer of suffering by judging yourself harshly for having forgotten in the first place. Epictetus would remind you that you're still learning. You're building a new capacity. Just as you wouldn't expect to lift heavy weights on your first day in a gym, you shouldn't expect perfect philosophical practice immediately. Every time you remember, even after having forgotten, you're strengthening your capacity. So when you catch yourself spiraling into anxiety about something you can't control, simply pause. Notice what's happening. I'm trying to control the uncontrollable again. I'm making myself suffer over something that isn't up to me. This recognition without self-criticism is enough. Then redirect. Ask yourself, what is actually up to me in this situation? Where can I exercise choice? What judgment am I making that I could examine? How can I respond skillfully from here? You don't need to have been practicing perfectly up to this point. You just need to practice now in this moment. This is always available to you. Now let's apply this to some specific modern anxieties. Consider worry about money. Financial anxiety is one of the most common sources of suffering in our world, and it's a perfect opportunity to practice Epictetus's teaching. You're worried about your finances. Maybe you don't have enough. Maybe you might not have enough in the future. Maybe you're comparing yourself to others who have more. This worry can consume your days and disturb your nights. What's up to you regarding money? Your effort and skill in your work, that's up to you. Your spending choices, that's up to you. Your saving and planning, that's up to you. Your attitude toward what you have, definitely up to you. This doesn't mean you shouldn't work hard or plan wisely. It means you work hard and plan wisely while recognizing that results aren't entirely up to you. You do what you can and accept what comes. Your peace doesn't depend on achieving specific financial outcomes. Your freedom doesn't wait for certain numbers in your bank account. Epictetus lived simply. He had few possessions. He taught that wealth and poverty are external things, neither good nor bad in themselves. What matters is how you relate to whatever you have or don't have. A rich person can be enslaved by their wealth, anxious about losing it, never satisfied. A poor person can be free, content with what they have, focused on what truly matters. The question isn't how much you have. The question is, are you free in relation to what you have? Can you use money without being used by it? Can you pursue financial stability without making it a condition for your peace? When financial worry arises, examine the judgment behind it. Are you telling yourself that you need a certain amount to be secure? That thought is what's disturbing you, not your actual financial situation. Security isn't found in any amount of money. It's found in your capacity to handle whatever comes. This doesn't solve your financial challenges practically. You still need to work, budget, plan. But it solves the suffering that financial challenges create. You can face your financial reality clearly without the added burden of anxiety. You can take effective action without being driven by fear. What's up to you? Taking care of yourself reasonably, making informed choices, following through with treatment if needed. Your attitude toward whatever health challenges you face, whether you let fear dominate your life or not. Many people spend years in anxious anticipation of health problems that may never come. They trade their present well-being for worry about the future. Epictetus would ask, is your worry preventing illness? No. Is it making you healthier? No. Is it giving you more life? No. It's only stealing the life you have now. This doesn't mean ignoring health or being careless. It means taking appropriate care while accepting that you cannot control all outcomes. Your body will age. It will experience challenges. This is part of being human. Fighting against this reality in your mind doesn't change it. It only makes you suffer. Let's get even more specific with workplace scenarios. Work is where many people feel most constrained, least free. But Epictetus would remind you that even in a difficult work situation, your internal freedom remains. Imagine you have a micromanaging boss who questions everything you do, offers constant criticism, and rarely acknowledges good work. This is genuinely difficult, but let's apply Epictetus's teaching. What's not up to you? Your boss's management style, their personality, their behavior, their opinions, whether they appreciate you. You cannot control any of this, no matter how much you might wish you could. What is up to you? Your work quality, your professionalism, your attitude, how you interpret their behavior, whether you let their management style disturb your internal peace, whether you fulfill your role with excellence regardless of recognition. Notice that you're not powerless here. You have significant freedom in how you experience and respond to this situation. Your boss's behavior doesn't have to determine your state of mind. Their lack of appreciation doesn't have to diminish your sense of worth. You might think, but their behavior affects me. I can't help feeling frustrated. Epictetus would say, no, their behavior is just their behavior. Your frustration comes from your judgment that they shouldn't behave this way. They do behave this way. That's reality. Your suffering comes from fighting against reality. This doesn't mean you have to like it or stay in this situation forever. But while you're here, you can practice maintaining your freedom. Do your work well because that's who you choose to be, not because you need their approval. Respond professionally because you value professionalism, not because you're trying to change them. You might also examine why their behavior disturbs you so much. Is it touching some need for external validation? Some belief that your worth depends on others' opinions? These are impressions you can work with. This difficult boss is actually giving you a perfect opportunity to practice freedom from the need for approval. And practically, you can still take action. You might document issues, speak with HR if necessary, look for other opportunities. Maintaining inner freedom doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. It means responding thoughtfully rather than reacting from disturbance. Now consider relationship challenges. You're having difficulties with your partner, a family member, a friend. They're not meeting your expectations. They're disappointing you. They're not changing despite your clear communication about what you need. What's not up to you? The other person's thoughts, feelings, choices, behavior, or character. You cannot control another person, no matter how much you care about them or how clearly you can see what they should do differently. What is up to you? Your own choices, your communication, your boundaries, how you interpret their behavior, whether you maintain your own character regardless of theirs, whether you can love them while still maintaining your freedom. This is often the hardest area to apply Epictetus's teaching. We want to control the people we care about precisely because we care about them. We want them to change, to see things our way, to do what we think is best. And our inability to control them creates immense suffering. Epictetus would ask, do you want to be free? Or do you want to control them? Because you can't have both. As long as you're invested in controlling someone else's choices, you've given them power over your peace. Your happiness depends on their compliance, which means you're not free. True love, Epictetus would say, doesn't seek to control. It recognizes the other person's freedom and maintains its own. You can communicate clearly, set healthy boundaries, even choose to leave a relationship if necessary, all while respecting both their freedom and yours. You might think this sounds cold or detached, But actually, it's the opposite. When you're not trying to control someone, you can actually see them clearly. When your peace doesn't depend on their choices, you can relate to them with genuine freedom. This is the foundation for real love and real friendship. Let's talk about handling failure and disappointment. You worked hard on something and it didn't succeed. You tried your best and fell short. You set a goal and didn't achieve it. This is painful, and it's also an ideal situation for practicing Epictetus's philosophy. What wasn't up to you? The final outcome. Whether other people chose your proposal. Whether the market responded to your product. Whether circumstances aligned in your favor. Results are never entirely within your control, even when you've done everything right. What was up to you? Your effort, your preparation, your intention, your character during the process, what you learn from the experience, how you respond to the disappointment. Epictetus taught that we should focus on being excellent in what's up to us and accept whatever results come. This doesn't mean not caring about results. It means not making your worth conditional on achieving them. It means recognizing that you can do everything right and still not get the outcome you wanted. This is perhaps the most liberating aspect of his teaching. You are not responsible for outcomes. You're responsible for effort, intention, and character. When you truly internalize this, failure loses its power to devastate you. Think about someone training for a race. If they focus only on winning, they might be devastated by coming in second, even if they ran their best time ever. They've missed the real victory, the improvement, the discipline, the effort. But if they focus on running their best race, they can celebrate personal excellence regardless of placement. Epictetus would say, train excellently, race excellently, let the results be what they are. Your freedom and worth don't depend on the medal. They depend on who you chose to be in the process. This applies to everything. Job applications, creative projects, relationship attempts, business ventures. In all of these, you control your effort and character, not the final results. Practice being excellent in what's up to you. Let go of demanding control over what isn't. Let's develop a specific process for examining impressions in real time. This is perhaps the most practical skill Epictetus taught. An impression arises, something happens, you see something, you hear something, you remember something. Immediately, you begin to interpret it. This interpretation happens so quickly it seems automatic. But there's a space there, and that space is your freedom. Here's a step-by-step process you can practice. Step 1. Notice the impression. Something has appeared in your awareness. It might be a physical sensation, a memory, a sight, a sound, something someone said, something you read. Just notice that something has appeared. Don't yet engage with it. Simply recognize. An impression has arisen. Step 2. Pause before giving assent. This is the crucial moment. Before you accept the impression as true or begin to react to it, pause. Create a small gap between the appearance of the impression and your response to it. This might be just a second or two. That's enough. Step 3. Examine the impression. Ask yourself, what is the bare fact here, and what is my interpretation? What actually happened, and what story am I telling about what happened? What is certain and what am I assuming? For example, if someone doesn't respond to your message, the bare fact is they haven't responded. Your interpretation might be, they're angry at me, they're ignoring me, they don't value me. Notice the difference. The first is fact. The second is story. Step 4. Question your interpretation. Is this interpretation necessarily true? What else could explain what happened? Am I treating my assumption as if it were fact? Am I responding to reality or to my story about reality? In the message example, maybe they're busy. Maybe they didn't see it. Maybe they're thinking about how to respond. Maybe their phone died. Maybe they're dealing with a crisis. Any of these could be true. Your anxious interpretation is just one possibility, not truth. Step 5. Consider what's up to you. In this situation, what can you actually control? Not their response or lack of response, but your interpretation, your emotional reaction, your next action. You can wait patiently. You can follow up politely if appropriate. You can let go of needing an immediate response. Step 6. Choose your response consciously. Based on this examination, how do you want to respond? Not how do you automatically react, but how do you choose to respond? This is your freedom. This is where you exercise your agency. This process becomes quicker with practice. At first, you might need to deliberately work through these steps. Eventually, it becomes more natural. You begin to catch yourself automatically. The pause becomes habitual. The examination becomes second nature. Practice this process with small things first. Don't wait for major crises to try it. Practice when you're mildly annoyed, slightly worried, a bit frustrated. Build the capacity with manageable challenges so it's available for bigger ones. This isn't about judging your past response. It's about training your capacity for the future. Every time you practice this process, even with past events, you're strengthening the neural pathways that support conscious response over automatic reaction. Now let's talk about what to do when you're in the middle of intense emotion and you can barely remember any of this. You're angry, you're terrified, you're overwhelmed. Philosophy seems very distant when you're flooded with feeling. First, recognize that intense emotion itself isn't the enemy. Epictetus experienced emotion. His students experienced emotion. The goal isn't to become emotionless. The goal is to not be controlled by emotion, to not give immediate assent to every feeling that arises. When you're in the grip of strong emotion, the 6-step process might be too complex. Simplify. Just do this. Name what you're feeling. I'm feeling very angry right now. Or I notice intense fear. Or this is overwhelming grief. Naming the emotion creates a tiny bit of space between you and the feeling. You're not the anger. You're the one noticing anger. This is subtle but important. It gives you a foothold for freedom. Then ask just one question. What's up to me right now? You don't need to examine every impression or work through the whole process. Just identify one thing within your control that you can focus on. Maybe it's your breathing. Maybe it's not acting on the emotion impulsively. Maybe it's removing yourself from the situation temporarily. Maybe it's choosing one small helpful action. Find one thing you can control and focus there. The emotion will move through you. Feelings are like weather, they arise and pass. You don't need to fight them or fix them immediately. You just need to avoid making bad decisions while they're present. This is practicing restraint, which is within your power. As the intensity lessens, you can bring more philosophy to bear. You can examine the judgments behind the emotion. You can consider more carefully what's up to you and what isn't. But in the heat of the moment, keeping it simple is wise. Some people find it helpful to have a simple phrase they return to in difficult moments. This too is not up to me. Or where is my freedom here? Or simply pause. Something that redirects you toward the essential teaching without requiring complex analysis. Remember that you're building a practice, not demanding perfection. Epictetus spent decades developing these capacities. His students studied with him for years. Be patient with yourself. When you forget, begin again. When you remember, acknowledge it. When you struggle, recognize that struggle is part of practice. When you succeed, don't become attached to success. Just keep practicing. The slave in ancient Rome developed incredible freedom through this practice. The same practice is available to you. Your circumstances are different, but the principles are timeless. What was up to Epictetus is up to you. Your attention, your judgments, your responses, your character. Start with what's in front of you today. Don't wait for ideal conditions. Don't wait until you've read more or understand better. Practice now with whatever situation you're facing. This is how philosophy becomes real. This is how you discover the freedom that Epictetus promised, the freedom that no circumstance can take away. As we begin to bring these threads together, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've discovered through Epictetus's teaching. We've journeyed through the life of a man who had every external reason to consider himself unfree, yet found a freedom more complete than most people ever imagined possible. Born into slavery, his very body not his own. Disabled, his physical capacity limited. Poor for most of his life, without possessions or status. Yet through understanding what was truly up to him, he became freer than emperors, freer than the wealthy, freer than those who seem to have everything. This paradox sits at the heart of his teaching. Freedom isn't found in circumstances. It's found in understanding. It's found in the proper use of impressions. It's found in recognizing what's within your power and focusing your life there. Think about how radical this teaching was in his time and how radical it remains today. The world constantly tells you that freedom comes from having more. More money, more status, more control over external things, more of whatever you currently lack. Epictetus said the opposite. He said freedom comes from wanting less, from relinquishing the attempt to control what you cannot control, from finding sufficiency in what you already have. This wasn't resignation or passivity. Epictetus taught his students to engage fully with life, to fulfill their duties, to act with excellence. But to do all of this from a place of internal freedom rather than external dependency. To care deeply about what they could control, their character, their choices, their responses, and to remain unshaken by what they couldn't control, outcomes, others' opinions, fortune's turns. The distinction seems simple. What's up to you, what's not up to you. But living by this distinction transforms everything. It transforms how you face challenges, how you relate to others, how you understand success and failure, how you experience each moment. When you truly understand that your peace doesn't depend on external circumstances, you become unshakable. Not because nothing affects you, but because you've found your stability in something that cannot be taken away. Your impressions, your judgments, your choices, these are always yours. No one can force you to assent to a harmful judgment. No one can make you abandon your character. Epictetus's students learned this not through intellectual understanding alone, but through practice. They examined their impressions daily. They noticed when they were trying to control what they couldn't control. They caught themselves giving assent to harmful judgments. They practiced maintaining their freedom in small things so it would be available in large things. And this practice changed them. They became different people, calmer, more focused, more effective. Not because life became easier, but because they stopped making it harder than it needed to be. They stopped adding suffering to pain. They stopped demanding that reality be different from what it was. They worked with what was up to them and accepted what wasn't. One of Epictetus's students was Arrian, who wrote down his teacher's discourses. These writings eventually reached Marcus Aurelius, who would become emperor of Rome. Marcus studied Epictetus devotedly, and his own philosophical journal, the Meditations, shows deep influence from this teacher who had been a slave. Think about that lineage. A slave teaches a freed student, who writes down the teaching, which reaches an emperor, who practices it while ruling the largest empire in the world. The teaching transcended all social boundaries because it addressed something universal: the human desire for freedom and the human capacity to find it within. Marcus Aurelius had infinitely more external power than Epictetus. He commanded armies, ruled nations, controlled vast wealth. Yet he studied the words of a former slave to learn about freedom, because he recognized what Epictetus knew. External power is not freedom. Freedom is internal, or it is nothing. The teaching has continued through centuries. Stoic philosophy influenced early Christian thought. It shaped Renaissance humanism. It resonates in modern cognitive therapy. The specific methods change, but the core insight remains. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. This isn't just ancient wisdom. It's profoundly relevant to the challenges you face today. The specific circumstances have changed. Epictetus didn't deal with smartphones and social media, with 24-hour news cycles and global connectivity, with the particular pressures of modern life. But the fundamental human condition remains the same. You still face circumstances beyond your control. You still experience the temptation to tie your peace to external outcomes. You still struggle with the desire to control what you cannot control. You still give automatic assent to impressions without examining them. You still forget what you know in the heat of the moment. And the solution remains the same. Understand what's up to you. Focus your energy there. Let go of demanding control over what isn't up to you. Examine your impressions. Choose your responses. Build your character. Practice daily. Be patient with yourself. Keep returning to the essential teaching. This is what makes Epictetus's philosophy so enduring. It's not culturally specific. It's not dependent on particular religious beliefs. It's not tied to any political ideology. It's a fundamental insight about human nature and human freedom, as relevant now as it was 2,000 years ago. The question is, what will you do with this teaching? Understanding it intellectually is one thing. Living by it is another. Epictetus would say that philosophy is useless unless it's practiced. Knowledge that doesn't change your life isn't real knowledge. So how do you move from understanding to practice, from theory to life? How do you make this teaching real for you, sustainable over time, integrated into your daily existence? The path forward is both simple and challenging. Simple because the teaching is clear. Challenging because it requires changing deep habits, noticing automatic patterns, and choosing differently again and again. Start small. This is crucial. Don't try to revolutionize your entire life immediately. Don't expect to perfectly apply Epictetus's teaching to every situation starting tomorrow. That's not how change works, and that expectation will only set you up for disappointment. Instead, choose one specific area where you'll practice. Maybe it's how you respond to traffic delays. Maybe it's how you handle criticism at work. Maybe it's how you relate to your morning anxiety. Pick something specific and manageable. In that one area, practice the basic distinction. When the situation arises, pause. Ask yourself, what's up to me here and what isn't? Where am I trying to control the uncontrollable? What impression am I giving automatic assent to? Do this with one situation until it becomes more natural, until you start to catch yourself automatically, until the pause becomes habitual. This might take weeks. That's fine. You're building a new capacity, and capacities take time to develop. Once this practice feels more established in one area, you can expand to another. Gradually, over time, you'll find yourself applying the teaching more broadly. The practice in one area trains your mind to recognize the same patterns in other areas. But always maintain realistic expectations. You won't remember every time. You won't apply the teaching perfectly. You'll still get caught up in anxiety about things you can't control. You'll still give automatic assent to harmful impressions. This is normal. This is part of the process. What matters isn't perfection. What matters is the direction you're moving. Are you noticing more quickly when you've forgotten? Are you returning to the practice more readily? Are you catching yourself before you're completely swept away? This is progress. Epictetus studied philosophy for decades. His students trained with him for years. Marcus Aurelius practiced these principles throughout his life and still struggled with them. If these people needed time and consistent practice, you can be patient with yourself too. The practice is lifelong. You don't graduate from needing to examine your impressions. You don't reach a point where the dichotomy of control no longer applies. As long as you're alive, you'll face situations that tempt you to try to control what you cannot control. As long as you have a mind, you'll need to practice using it well. This might sound daunting, but it's actually liberating. You don't need to fix everything at once. You just need to practice today. Tomorrow you'll practice again. Each day is complete in itself. Each moment of awareness is sufficient. You're not working towards some distant perfection. You're practicing freedom right now in this moment. Build sustainability into your practice. This means creating rhythms and routines that support you. The morning preparation and evening review we discussed earlier, these create a structure for practice. They make it more likely you'll remember what matters. But the routines should serve you, not burden you. If your practice feels like one more thing you should do, one more way you're failing, you've lost the plot. Philosophy should make your life better, not add more stress. If it's not helping, adjust your approach. Some days your practice might be just one conscious breath before responding to an email. Some days it might be hours of reflection. Both are valuable. Both are sufficient. The goal isn't to add obligations. The goal is to find freedom. Also recognize that practice doesn't happen in isolation. Your circumstances affect your capacity. When you're well-rested, well-fed, not overwhelmed, it's easier to remember philosophy. When you're exhausted, hungry, stressed beyond your current capacity, it's harder. This is just reality. So part of practicing Epictetus's teaching is taking reasonable care of yourself. Getting adequate sleep, eating reasonably, managing your stress where possible, these aren't separate from philosophy. They're part of caring for the instrument of your practice, which is yourself. This doesn't mean making self-care an obsession or demanding perfect conditions before you practice. It means recognizing that you're a human being with human limits and working with that reality rather than against it. You might also find it helpful to connect with others who are interested in this philosophy. Reading Stoic texts, listening to discussions, sharing your practice with friends, these can all support your development. Epictetus's students practiced together, learned together, supported each other. You don't have to practice alone, but also be careful not to let learning about philosophy replace actually practicing it. You can read every Stoic text, listen to every lecture, discuss philosophy endlessly, and still not change your life. At some point, you have to close the books and examine your own impressions. You have to apply the teaching to your actual situations. You have to practice. Think of philosophy as a skill like music or athletics. You can study music theory extensively, but that doesn't make you a musician. You have to actually practice playing. You can understand athletic training principles perfectly, but that doesn't make you fit. You have to actually train. Philosophy is the same. Understanding the ideas is necessary but not sufficient. You have to practice living by them. You'll handle a situation that would have previously overwhelmed you, and you'll realize you've grown. These moments confirm that the practice is working. But don't practice for these moments. Don't make your peace dependent on feeling like you're progressing. Remember Epictetus's teaching. Focus on what's up to you. Your practice is up to you. Whether you experience dramatic breakthroughs is not entirely up to you. Practice because it's the right thing to do, because it aligns with your values, because you're committed to developing your character. Let the results be what they are. This brings us to an important question. What is the goal of all this practice? If it's not about achieving specific results or reaching some perfected state, what are you actually aiming for? The goal, if we can call it that, is to live well, to use your human capacities excellently, to maintain your freedom regardless of circumstances, to align your life with your understanding of what truly matters, to develop your character, to find peace not through controlling externals but through understanding what's actually up to you. Epictetus would say the goal is to live according to nature, and human nature, according to the Stoics, is rational and social. We have the capacity to think, to choose, to understand. We have the capacity to live in community, to care for others, to fulfill our social roles. The goal is to exercise these capacities well. This means different things for different people. You have your specific roles, your specific circumstances, your specific challenges. Philosophy doesn't prescribe one way of living for everyone. It provides principles you can apply to your particular life. For Epictetus as a slave, living well meant maintaining his dignity, developing his mind, eventually teaching others despite his limited freedom. For Marcus Aurelius as emperor, living well meant ruling justly, maintaining his character under immense pressure, fulfilling his duties to the empire. For you, living well will mean something specific to your situation. But whatever your circumstances, the underlying principles remain the same. Focus on what's up to you. Examine your impressions. Maintain your freedom. Develop your character. Fulfill your roles with excellence. This isn't about achieving some final state where you never struggle, never forget, never make mistakes. It's about living consciously, responding thoughtfully, maintaining your capacity for freedom regardless of what happens. You'll still face difficulties. You'll still experience loss, disappointment, pain. Philosophy doesn't make you immune to the challenges of human life, but it changes how you face them. It gives you tools for maintaining your dignity, your peace, your freedom in the midst of challenges. And perhaps more importantly, it helps you see what's truly worth caring about. In a world that constantly tells you to care about money, status, appearance, others' opinions, possessions, achievements, Stoic philosophy says, none of these things are good or bad in themselves. They're externals. They're not up to you fully. Don't make your peace depend on them. What matters is your character, your choices, your judgments, your responses, the kind of person you're becoming through how you engage with life. This is up to you. This is where your freedom lives. This is what's truly worth developing. Imagine living with this understanding deeply integrated. You still work, but your peace doesn't depend on getting promoted. You still have relationships, but your worth doesn't depend on others' approval. You still prefer health to illness, but your freedom doesn't wait for perfect health. You still pursue goals, but your happiness doesn't hinge on achieving them. This doesn't make you cold or detached. If anything, it allows you to engage more fully, more genuinely. When you're not desperately needing specific outcomes, you can actually be present. When your worth doesn't depend on others' opinions, you can actually listen to them. When you're not crushed by every setback, you can actually learn from them. You become more stable, more resilient, more genuinely helpful to others. Not because you've achieved some superhuman state, but because you've aligned your life with reality. You've stopped fighting against what you cannot control. You've focused your energy on what you can control. You've found your freedom where it actually exists. This is what Epictetus offered his students and what his teaching offers you. Not a guarantee of easy circumstances, not a promise that nothing bad will happen, but a path to freedom that no circumstance can take away. A way of living that makes you more fully human, more fully alive, more fully free. The teaching has survived 2,000 years because it addresses something essential and universal. The human condition hasn't fundamentally changed. We still struggle with the same core challenges. We still seek freedom, peace, meaning. We still face circumstances beyond our control and struggle with how to respond. And the teaching still works. When you practice it, you discover what Epictetus' students discovered, what Marcus Aurelius discovered, what countless people through the centuries have discovered. Freedom is available here and now, regardless of your circumstances. You don't need to wait for better conditions. You don't need to achieve certain things first. You can practice right now with whatever situation you're facing. Your life becomes your practice ground. Every interaction is an opportunity to examine impressions. Every challenge is a chance to remember what's up to you. Every moment is an invitation to choose consciously rather than react automatically. This might sound like hard work, and in some ways it is. Paying attention takes effort. Examining your automatic patterns takes effort. Choosing differently than your habits suggest takes effort. But it's the kind of effort that makes life better, not harder. It's the kind of work that brings freedom, not burden. And over time, it becomes less effortful. The practices become more natural. The principles become more integrated. You still have to practice, but the practice flows more easily. You still forget sometimes, but you remember more quickly. You still struggle, but less desperately. You begin to trust your capacity to handle whatever comes. Not because you can control what comes, but because you know you can always control your response. You know you can always return to examining your impressions. You know you can always choose where to focus your attention. This trust is itself a kind of freedom. Epictetus lived this teaching so completely that he became its embodiment. A slave who was freer than most free people. A disabled man who taught about human capacity. A poor man who possessed the wealth of wisdom. His life was his teaching, and his teaching came from his life. You're not trying to become Epictetus. You're trying to apply his principles to your own unique life. But his example shows what's possible. It shows that freedom really is available regardless of circumstances. It shows that philosophy can be lived, not just studied. It shows that practice actually works. As we move toward closing, let's consider what it means to carry this teaching forward sustainably. Not as a temporary enthusiasm that fades, but as an integrated part of how you live. The key is remembering why you're practicing. Not to impress anyone, not to become perfect, not to transcend your humanity, but to live well, to find freedom, to develop your character, to align your life with what you understand to be true and good. When you forget why you're practicing, the practice can become mechanical or burdensome. But when you remember the purpose, freedom, peace, wisdom, the practice becomes meaningful. Each moment of awareness is valuable. Each choice to examine an impression matters. Each return to what's up to you is significant. You're not trying to escape life through philosophy. You're trying to engage with life more skillfully, more freely, more fully. Philosophy is meant to help you live better, not to create a new set of obligations you can fail at. So be gentle with yourself. When you forget, notice the forgetting without harsh judgment. When you remember, acknowledge it without pride. Keep practicing not because you should, but because it serves you, because it makes your life better, because it helps you be the person you want to be. And remember that progress isn't linear. Some days you'll practice well. Some days you'll forget everything. Some periods of life will be easier for practice. Others will challenge you intensely. This variation is normal. What matters is the long arc of your development, not your performance on any given day. Think of this teaching as a companion for your whole life. In your 20s, you'll apply it to certain challenges. In your 40s, different ones. In your 70s, still others. The principles remain constant, but how they manifest in your life will change as your circumstances change. This is part of what makes the teaching so powerful. It's not just for one life stage or one type of person. It's for humans in all our variety and complexity. It speaks to something universal while allowing for individual application. You might find that certain aspects of the teaching resonate more strongly at different times. When you're young and ambitious, the teaching about focusing on character rather than external success might be most relevant. When you're older and facing loss, the teaching about accepting what you cannot control might speak most deeply. Trust what calls to you at each stage, but always come back to the core. What's up to me? Where is my freedom? Am I trying to control what I cannot control? Am I examining my impressions? These questions never become irrelevant. They remain your touchstone throughout life. You might also find that your understanding deepens over time. Insights you had intellectually become lived wisdom. Principles you understood in theory become embodied in practice. This deepening is the fruit of sustained practice. Can't be rushed, but it will come if you keep practicing. And as you practice, you might find yourself naturally wanting to share what you're learning. Not as some kind of authority or expert, but simply as one person sharing what's helped them. This is fine. Epictetus shared what he learned. His students shared with others. Philosophy is meant to be shared, but be careful not to become preachy or dogmatic. Share from your experience, not from a place of superiority. Offer what's helped you, but recognize that others must find their own path. Your practice is for you. If it helps others, wonderful, but that's not why you practice. The same applies to how you relate to this teaching itself. Hold it lightly. Epictetus offered principles, not rigid rules. He wanted his students to think for themselves, to understand the reasoning behind the teaching, to apply it intelligently to their own situations. If something doesn't work for you, that's okay. If you find you need to modify the practice to fit your life, that's fine. The goal isn't perfect orthodoxy to some ancient teaching. The goal is finding freedom and living well. If Epictetus's teaching helps with that, use it. If some aspect doesn't serve you, don't force it. This is the spirit in which Epictetus himself taught. He wasn't asking for blind adherence. He was offering tools for examining your own life, your own impressions, your own choices. He was teaching people to think clearly, to understand what's up to them, to maintain their freedom. The specific practices serve this purpose. So take what's useful. Practice what helps. Be willing to experiment, to adjust, to find what works for your unique life. The principles are sound, but their application is personal. You're not trying to fit your life into a philosophical system. You're using philosophical tools to live your life better. As you practice over years, you'll develop your own understanding, your own way of working with these principles. This is as it should be. Philosophy isn't meant to be memorized and repeated. It's meant to be lived, which means making it your own. Epictetus started as a student of Stoic philosophy. He studied the earlier Stoics, but his teaching has its own flavor, its own emphasis, its own character. He made the philosophy his own through living it. You can do the same. Your practice will be shaped by your personality, your circumstances, your challenges, your insights. This is good. This is how philosophy stays alive rather than becoming dead tradition. Each person who seriously practices brings their own life to the teaching and makes it new. But through all this personalization, the core insight remains. Freedom is internal. You cannot control external events, but you can always control your response. What's up to you is sufficient for living well. This truth is universal, even as its application is individual. So practice with confidence. Trust the teaching. Trust your capacity to apply it. Trust that focusing on what's up to you really does lead to freedom. Epictetus discovered this as a slave. Marcus Aurelius discovered it as an emperor. Countless people in between have discovered it. You can discover it too. As we come to the end of our time together, let's rest in the essence of what Epictetus taught. Let all the details, all the practices, all the examples settle into their core truth. You are free, not because of your circumstances, but despite them. Not because you control external events, but because you control your response to them. Not because life is easy, but because you have the capacity to meet difficulty with wisdom. This freedom was available to a slave 2,000 years ago. It's available to you now. It doesn't wait for better conditions. It doesn't require perfect understanding. It doesn't demand that you fix everything before you can claim it. Your freedom exists in this moment, in your capacity to choose. To choose what you pay attention to choose how you interpret what happens, to choose what kind of person you'll be in the face of whatever you're facing. No one can take this from you. Your body can be constrained. Your possessions can be taken. Your reputation can be damaged. Your plans can fail. But your essential freedom, your capacity to choose your response, to maintain your character, to use your impressions well, this remains always within your power. Epictetus knew this from direct experience. He lived it fully, and through living it, he discovered a freedom more complete than most people ever imagine. A peace that didn't depend on circumstances. A dignity that couldn't be taken away. The same discovery awaits you, not because you'll achieve perfect practice, not because life will become easy, but because you'll understand where freedom actually lives. You'll stop looking for it in external things and find it where it's always been, in your own mind, your own choices, your own character. This is the gift of his teaching, not a set of techniques to master, but an understanding to live by. Not a philosophy to learn about, but a practice to live through. Not ideas to think about, but truth to embody. And the practice is simple, though not always easy. When something happens, pause. Notice the impression. Examine your judgment. Ask what's up to you. Choose your response. Return to this again and again. This is the practice. This is enough. You don't need to be perfect at it. You just need to keep practicing. Each moment of awareness counts. Each time you remember counts. Each choice to examine your impression rather than accepting it automatically counts. All of it matters. All of it builds your capacity. Over time, something shifts. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but genuinely. You become more stable, more resilient, more free. Not because your circumstances have improved, but because you've changed how you relate to your circumstances. You stop being tossed about by every external event. You stop making your peace conditional on things going your way. You stop giving your freedom to people and situations that don't deserve it. You find your center and learn to return to it. This doesn't mean nothing affects you. It means you're not controlled by what affects you. You can be moved without being overcome. You can experience difficulty without being destroyed. You can face challenges while maintaining your dignity. And in this stability, there's a deep peace. Not the peace of having everything you want. Not the peace of perfect circumstances. But the peace of knowing you can handle whatever comes. The peace of having found something that cannot be taken away. This is what Epictetus offers you. Not an escape from life, but a way through it. Not a promise that nothing bad will happen, but a path to freedom regardless of what happens. Not a guarantee of happiness, but a method for maintaining your peace. The teaching is here for you whenever you need it. When you're anxious, return to the dichotomy of control. When you're angry, examine the judgment behind the anger. When you're overwhelmed, ask what's actually up to you. When you forget, simply begin again. Your life continues with its challenges and opportunities, its joys and sorrows, its predictable patterns and unexpected turns. But now you have a way of working with all of it. You have a practice that makes you more free, not less. More capable, not less. More fully yourself, not less. Carry this forward gently. Don't burden yourself with demanding perfection. Don't create new anxieties about practicing correctly. Just practice. Just return to the simple truth. What's up to me? Where is my freedom? Am I trying to control what I cannot control? These questions will serve you for the rest of your life. In every situation, they remain relevant. In every challenge, they offer guidance. In every moment of forgetting, they help you return. And remember, you're part of a long lineage. Epictetus practiced these principles. His students practiced them. Marcus Aurelius practiced them. Countless people through the centuries have practiced them. You're not alone in this practice. You're joining a tradition of people seeking freedom through wisdom. The slave who became one of history's greatest teachers on freedom. His gift to you is this understanding. His life demonstrated what's possible. His teaching shows you how to find it for yourself. His example proves that circumstances don't determine freedom. May you discover what he discovered. May you find the freedom that was available to him even in chains. May you know the peace that comes from focusing on what's truly up to you. May you develop the wisdom to distinguish what you can control from what you cannot. And may you be gentle with yourself in this practice. May you remember that every moment of awareness is sufficient. May you trust your capacity to keep returning, to keep practicing, to keep growing. The teaching is complete. The practice continues. Your life awaits you, with all its challenges and gifts. Meet it with wisdom. Meet it with freedom. Meet it knowing that what's most important is always within your power. Rest in this truth. Rest in your freedom. Rest in the knowledge that you have everything you need to live well right here, right now. This is what Epictetus taught. This is what you can live. Thank you for this time together. May it serve you well.